Good evening, everybody. Appreciate your patience this evening. We are getting off to a few minutes late start, so it being Wednesday, May 10th, 2023, 6 p.m., we'll begin this evening's Ways and Means Committee meeting. As we normally do, please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I ask you to just remain standing for another moment of silence for all of those who have served in our armed forces, home and abroad, and for all those who have provided the ultimate sacrifice for the defense of our country. Thank you. Please have a seat. Okay. So, welcome this evening to everybody. And tonight's agenda, so first up, Clerk Semino, if we could have a roll call where everyone is present here this evening, there'll be no need for an individual roll call for each vote.
Councilor Reynolds?
Here.
Councilor Flaherty? Here. Councilor Maglio? Here. And Council President Barricott is in attendance as ex officio.
Welcome, Madam President. Okay, we have no approval of minutes this evening, nor do we have any old business. So the first order of business is to reopen or put back on the table our Mayor's Motion 23025, FY 2024 operating budget, or take up any action relative thereto. Is there a motion to take off the table Order 23025?
So moved.
Second.
And all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, thank you. Okay. So we'll also this evening be covering the Department of Public Works revolving accounts. And when that comes, we'll talk about that at the end of the operating budget. We will put that motion back on the table for review by the committee. So thank you very much. Director Spellman, I take it you are the facilitator on behalf of the Mayor's office this evening.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Tonight, to present the Public Works budget, we have Jim Arsenault, the DPW Director, and Mike McGurty, the Facilities Director. And I'll turn it over to them.
We'll turn it over to them. Okay. Is there any statement you'd like to make, Director Arsenault?
Just a generic one, just to say that, there's a lot of different divisions in DPW, so just to, in each it covers a lot of different ground, so, and be more than happy to work with you and see how
Very
things go.
good. For the purposes of how we'll manage these questions and comments this evening, as it pertains to the various departments of the DPW, I'd like to ask my fellow committee members if there would be a preference of questions by individual department. We'll entertain questions from the three of us, or would you like to just take your questions and all at once? I think I would prefer to have department by department.
Sure.
Okay, so that's what we'll do. We'll start with,
Okay.
we will take the questions and comments from the committee members as we move our way through each of your departments. So we shall start with Okay. So first up, for the DPW Department review, let's take on the administration. And I'd like to ask Councilor Flaherty if she has any opening questions on this particular portion of the proposed budget.
I do not have any questions about the administration. No.
Councilor Maglio, any questions, comments?
Yes. Hello. Thank you for being here tonight. So my questions will be kind of similar. They'll be sort of the same theme. From department to department, I'm curious how many staff, how many FTEs you have in the administration of your departments.
Sure. We have myself, who's the department head, 2 assistant directors, and then we have 4 clerical staff. There's a little bit of money for part-time staff, but it's only pretty small, paltry sum, so.
And is that adequate to run all of these different departments?
Yes, I mean, I have the 2 assistant directors who help me out. We all help each other, so when we're away, we're able to, manage if someone's on vacation or whatever, it's seamless. It's because if I'm out, then one of the department heads then takes over and so forth. As far as the clerical staff, we have a financial person who looks at the overall system as far as how, putting the budgets together and all that. And then we have an assistant who helps us with the payrolls and kind of manages the payrolls and things like that. And then the other positions kind of help us with the other functions what we're working on. So yes, I believe it is adequate, yes.
And have those has that amount of positions stayed fairly steady over the past 5 years?
There has been a change because the assistant directors, when I first came here, I was the director and that was it. So that's changed. So the assistant directors were positions, but they were one was in engineering and one was in the highway department. And so those 2 positions got moved over and changed a bit, so over the years.
Okay.
So, and then, but the other positions are pretty similar to what's been there before in the past, yes.
Okay. Okay. I don't have any other questions around the administration.
Okay.
Thanks.
Thank you.
To you, Joe.
Thank you, Councilor Maglio. Okay, as it pertains to administration, DPW. So, there's one item here, as far as we see all of your actuals, 43, 53. Okay. One issue that I have that is a recurring theme, and it's happened once more with me, and I believe this is the category that would give me a little bit more insight into why the performance of communications to neighborhood constituents when we have projects to be undertaken that are out in the streets or will turn someone's water off or anything of that nature that would have a potential to disrupt a normal day for a neighborhood. Advertising. I see here you have $405 that was current year allocated. You've used $50.19. Is this category utilized when it comes to notifying neighbors, constituents, residents of major changes or, major projects that are occurring in their neighborhoods or on their streets in front of their homes?
Well, a lot of advertising we do is we actually go to the properties and we hand out flyers to them. We actually have our staff go out and do that. We also put it online for the information for people to get it in that direction. It's the only advertising we would do is if there was like a public hearing or something of that nature. We do have funds available if they were needed. We have not so much in this section, but in the water and sewer division, I believe there is some funding, and that's part of what you're talking about, like water projects and stuff. There is funding in there as well. But most of the time when we go out and do a project, we have staff go out and actually physically bring the materials there to the residents.
And is there a standard of how much lead time that you want to give or you feel is necessary to give to neighbors?
Typically what we usually do is when we know what projects are coming up, we notify them well in advance, like 6 months in advance or even earlier. And then as time gets close, then we start to provide more information as it gets closer to the time. But there's varying projects. You're talking about the capital projects that we would do that. There are some projects where you may have to do kind of immediately because of concerns.
Understood,
That'd
yep.
be different. So.
But for those, my primary focus are those that are planned
Yeah.
for, forecasted out. I know we had some issues around Hawthorne Road when that was being constructed and the short notice that was given to neighbors, which caused a lot of consternation, particularly for me as the local counselor. We have another project that's underway presently on Hollingsworth Ave. I had no idea this project was coming as the counselor. So that's something I will take up with the mayor's office as far as the courtesy of being notified of a major project, road being shut down in order for sidewalks to be installed. So, I mean, granted, my frontage is not involved in this project, but I'm one house away from that project that I have to traverse those roads in order to leave my street every morning. I got no notification. I'm unaware of my neighbors getting notification. Is there something different that you can tell me?
Yeah, from my end, from what I've heard, you want to come up, John? I didn't bring him up because I thought we were going.
Yeah, no
Engineering
worries.
was later on. So.
Okay.
Thank you. To that project, we actually did, so typically with our paving and sidewalk construction projects, we notify, we reasonably sometime in the late winter, early spring, we sort of have our list. We're working on getting our list finalized for the year of all the work we're going to be doing. As soon as we are reasonably confident that the list is set and that the funding is in place for those projects, we try to notify everybody. So every street that we're going to be doing throughout the year, we try to give everybody a notice in the early spring that says, we're going to be doing road work on your road this year. Here's what to expect. If you have any planned work, such as utility work, if you reach out to us, we can help you along. If you have any drainage issues, reach out to us. We can work on getting those fixed during the project. So we give out an initial notification, and then we also, once we are reasonably confident that we know approximately when the project is going to start, we also try to give a 2 or 1 week heads up that, okay, the project, the contractors will be coming out, we will be doing this work. In that notice, we also provide a link to the website where we try to post semi-regular updates that people can go to the website and just keep track of sort of where we are loosely in the project.
Okay, so the effectiveness of that type of a notification, I can't speak to its effectiveness as far as I've never seen a notification. Short windows, project starts on a Monday, the notice goes out on a Friday, that kind of stuff. I think we can do better on that. There's room for improvement. There is, I mean, I don't even know if this, I wasn't aware that Hollingsworth Ave, I know was going to have sidewalks done. I know it was an issue I had brought up with the mayor for the last 18 months, and then to see one morning these huge tractor-trailer beds dropping off all kinds of curbing. So it was a bit of a surprise to me. So I'm using this opportunity in the administrative file, in the administrative section of your budget. I wanted to gain an understanding of how you perform that particular task. Is it an advertisement? Is it just you're utilizing the assets that you have, and as a kind of an extra duty, you send out your staff to do those hand deliveries?
That's correct. What Director Arsenault said earlier was correct. We do typically find it easier to simply boots on the ground, hand out notices, go door to door with notices. We find that easier than actually putting together a mailing and having to do, pay for postage and all of the. And
Okay, I can follow up on this specific project. I don't want to take the time of my council members, committee members, on what I can see to be more of an operational issue.
Sure.
However, it was something that jumped out at me here as far as this advertising goes. And I would assume then that the $50.19 on the actuals from a $405 budgeted amount, what's that work out to be, like a 12% of your budget that you used? And
Chairperson, basically, we sometimes have to do advertisements for whatever reason, and sometimes we use those funds. But like I said before, in the Water and Sewer Department, a lot of the projects that we have involved usually support those, and we have much more funding in that division.
But is there a reason why? Is it just a slow season, that you didn't have projects enough to notify, or
No,
required
no.
notification, or advertisement, I should say?
You know, it really depends if something comes up or it's not part of the water and sewer division, so it's a general fund. And so it tends to be more of something that, for whatever reason, we got to advertise something. Like it has to be, like say I can't think of a particular instance, but yeah, Conservation Commission, we might be doing like we recently, with the cemetery, we're doing a project with the cemetery and all that. So we had to advertise for that. And so there's situations that aren't normal like every year. It's just once in a while something comes up. But the actual, most of the bulk of the, if there's any advertising money, would be out of water and sewer. So that's really how it usually goes.
Conservation doesn't have its own advertising budget?
They typically hold the applicant responsible for placing a legal notification in the newspaper, as well as doing abutter notifications.
Okay.
By the public meeting, that
And,
law.
okay, so in this case, the situation or the scenarios that Director Arsenault referred to were you, the town, is the contractor in question?
Correct.
Okay, thank you for providing that clarification. That does it for me on the administrative portion.
Okay. I guess.
Thank you, Mr. Thompson. We appreciate your answers and clarifications. Next up, we have is facilities. I'm sorry, I have a question from Councilor Maglio.
Oh,
I have a quick one, and then I think also Councilor Baraka does. So when you say that there's a notice out and you go to the website, so where on the website? Because I went to the website, let's say I see a lot of the granite stones, or recently people saw writing, markings on commercial, and I know that Magnolia Street and other kinds of pipe work was happening, and something came out today, I believe, for National Grid. But in those couple of weeks prior to that, or just for anything, when I go to Braintree DPW, it's not intuitive as to where I should go from there to find this notice. So where just so that we can help people help themselves, where do they go?
Sure. So there's actually, if you go to the engineering division webpage, which is a sub-page of the DPW, there should be a link on the left-hand side. We have two separate links. We have a link that describes all of our 2023 planned projects, and then we also have a link for project updates, where we just try, it's not terribly detailed, but we do try to at least update it every so often, and just to let people know kind of what general phasing of the project we're on.
Okay, so that might be on a computer screen, but it's not on a phone version, which is where most people are checking this information first. Second, I wouldn't really know whether to go to engineering or whether to go to recreation, or stormwater. Is this water? Is this sewer? Is it the highway? Is it the grounds? I wouldn't necessarily know as a resident. I'm wondering, could you just put everything that's coming up on the top page and just save everybody a lot of worry, wondering?
I don't know. I could look into that. My immediate reaction is that I don't know that we would want to push off or mess with the main page, just because that's where all the contact and general information for the department is.
But with a link. I'm not saying list all the projects right there, but a link. Are you wondering what work is happening in your neighborhood? Click here.
Sure. Yeah, no, I think that's reasonable enough. I think we could look at doing that, sure. Just to clarify, when we do hand out the notices to residents, we do provide a direct link for people to navigate to. So we don't just, for example, we don't just say on the DPW webpage. I think we provide an actual link. But noted, we can look at doing something to make it a little easier to find.
Yeah, I think
if
that
you were
would
just
be
navigating there.
really helpful for people. Thank you.
Sure.
That's it for me.
Thank you,
Thanks.
Counselor. Madam President, my apologies, and the chair recognizes.
Thank you very much, Chairman Reynolds. I'll direct this question to Director Spellman, and then Director Spellman, you can tell me if this is the right part of the hearing for this or not, but since we're on administration, it's sort of a more overarching question. So on the overall budget summary page, it's sort of like the beginning of our budget books that summarizes the amounts in each department, I see that the facilities services that were transferred from the school department to the DPW are zeroed out for both FY23 and FY24 in the Public Works Department section. However, and they are in the Education Department section, but only for 1 year. So I wanted to find out, was that intentional or was that a miss? So maybe, and again, if this is a separate conversation for the school department night, happy to table
No,
that.
through the chair.
Right, yes.
The reason I put it in this way into the budget, the fiscal '23 education line item, the $73,472,000, that total budget included the school custodians, the school maintenance, and the school utilities division. For fiscal '24, those departments, as you said, were shifted to the facilities division. But to have comparable numbers for year over year, the $472,068 was the fiscal '23 appropriation for the entire school budget. To be comparable to last year, I included those divisions 16, 17, and 19 that are currently under the Public Works now and will be going forward. What I was trying to do is just show year-to-year comparisons, and when we get to fiscal year '24, I will put those numbers down into the Public Works Division, and then for fiscal '25, they'll be comparable to show them in the facilities, in the DPW, and then in fiscal '25, the requested amount will be in the DPW budget. But I thought to compare apples to apples, to show the total education budget year over year, it made more sense to include those numbers in the presentation here. As you've seen, that the education line for itself, excluding these three divisions, is $74,732,000.
Okay. Thank you for that explanation. I'm going to quibble with the approach only because if you're glancing at the department totals, it appears as if the education department actually has a 9.25% increase over last year, and I don't think that's correct, right? Or is it? And again, we don't have to get into the nuances of this page. I wanted to make sure right this second. It's not. It feels a little nebulous, and I don't think that's the intent, so I just want to make sure I can't explain it. I need to be able to explain it when I look at it. So I'm happy to.
The intent was to compare apples to apples. The other option would be to reduce the 23 school budget line, pull out those programs, put those programs and also the 24 items down into the facilities budget.
Which is how the school department is showing their budget, right? They're showing their budget. And again, I apologize, Chairman
No,
Reynolds.
please,
We can
these are
table
good.
this
This
to education night if you so
I would
desire.
like, since this does include the DPW, I would entertain that we continue with that line of questioning if you'd like to go further.
It's at your discretion.
That
so.
is, I'm saying,
Okay.
go right ahead.
So I think I just want to make sure that residents and counselors are looking at the same numbers in the same way, because it becomes very confusing if the school department in the information they're presenting to the public says their FY23 adjusted is $68,494,000, and in this budget presentation, we have a different number. So I'm not sure how those two didn't get synced up. It feels fixable if that would be my preference, but I understand this isn't, I can only make a recommendation. But I do think it is a little bit hard to follow, and also then it doesn't look like the facilities services, the school facilities services have been moved over to the DPW department. It appears as if they're still in the school budget. And then you've got your school budget at $80 million versus what the school department is presenting at $74 million.
Go right ahead.
Thank you. Just to hopefully clarify this a little bit more.
Yeah.
To Ed's point, if you look at the very department totals, those are the all-in budgets for schools that would have included the facilities amounts in the prior year. So if you're looking at it from just what does the school committee control in terms of, budgetary transfers and how they're going to spend their budget, it's the $74 million for '24 versus, I believe, the 68 or so from the prior year, which you wouldn't see that on here just because it's lumped together with the custodian, maintenance, and utilities piece of it. So that's why you do see a difference. It's just a different way to view it and approach it here. But I understand the confusion because I had the same question, my initial look at this, and the way I try to view it is who controls does the school committee control the 74 or do they control the 80? And the answer is they control the $74 million.
And I appreciate the explanation. I'm just, it's very hard to, I understand this, the accounting makes sense to me, but the way we're communicating it to the residents, I think is very challenging. So I'll leave it at that for tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam President. Just to follow up on that, that was a concern of mine as well that I was going to be taking up. So the way that I look at it, I would say, okay, what date did DPW take over officially the assets of the facilities team which formerly belonged to the school system? That's a question. Would you be able to answer that, Director Arsenault? Meaning, what fiscal year did your facilities team officially take on the combined role that was voted on by the previous council?
That I'm aware of, to the chair, that I'm aware of, it's July 1st of 2022. That was the, I believe that was it, right, Ed?
Fiscal year '23, correct.
So, any money...
Fiscal year 23, sorry.
Fiscal year 23
yeah.
started
But
on...
the actual date was July 1st.
July 1st of 2022.
Yeah.
Right? So there wouldn't, since I think the way that the town auditor, Mr. McGoldrick, had stated it, was that money in fiscal year 2023 controlled by the school department or the school committee? And I would say no, because they no longer had those assets under their control as of July 1st of last year.
Well, I mean, I agree in that respect, but I mean, we've been working directly with the superintendent over the last year.
Understood as the
it's-
customer.
We're seamless. I mean, we've been working with them.
Well, for
Things they
purposes of-
want, we've been doing.
I
and,
understand
you know,
that, but as purposes of budget and just a straightforward clarification, when I see a school budget that says that in fiscal '24 it's increased by 9.2%, I don't know if I can fully say that that's accurate and get behind that based on these numbers here. And I understand the apples-to-apples analogy. So that is something that we will further discuss when we have a chance to reconcile with the school department, okay?
yeah. I have nothing to do with that report, by the way.
No,
so-
I understand. I was only, as the operating
I'm
manager...
just trying to do my job.
As the operating manager of the DPW,
Yeah.
who is responsible for the presentation of this entire budget for the DPW,
Yeah.
Those are all those assets that have to do with any kind of facilities work that's done in this town is controlled by the DPW. It's in their budget, correct?
Yeah.
Right.
It's, we're responsible for it, yes.
Correct. And that's where it would be allocated, is in your budget. I would, would you agree?
I'm not a finance guy, so, sorry. I'm an engineer by trade, but yeah, I would agree that we're responsible for making sure those funds are spent and prudently. And
Right.
But I will say that, you know, in my opinion, I'm not a finance person, I'm not doing it, but it is good to see, like, because what we need to do within the fiscal budget is to make sure that those funds have some ability to see how, to be in certain accounts, because what happens is if there's funding from the federal or state or whatever, we need to segregate those out to say, hey, if the funding comes in, this is part of the overall cost of the school system. So we can then make sure that if there's a grant coming, say, for instance, relative to school facilities, then we have that ability to section it off to say this is particular for schools. That's my
So the
belief.
money was secured by the school department in that scenario you're describing?
When we split, the school department said, make sure we keep the original funds, like the actual accounts. And because if there is like a grant or something like that, I mean, Ed would know better than me, but.
Right, but I'm talking about just strictly, grants are not included in our operating budget. I'm speaking about the funds that are allocated specifically in the operating budget,
Yep.
outside of any other funds that may receive from state aid, or, excuse me, not state aid, but from grants.
Or it's state aid too, because the
State aid is a
would-
part of our budget from a
Yeah.
revenue standpoint, and I get that.
Yeah.
Right, that's why I
That's all
corrected
I was
myself.
trying to say, yeah.
Right, so from a grant perspective, we do not include grant monies in a budget forecast.
Through the chair, if I could just make one
Yes.
last point. This fiscal '23 budget column represents what was presented and voted by the town council. So the fiscal '23 school budget that was voted was $73,472,068. That's why it's presented there in one column. And to be comparable, to compare, as I said, apples to apples year over year, I included those three divisions in this presentation for this year.
Well, somebody of your understanding and training could understand that, but would you say that there is a notation that a notation of exactly what transpired there could help clarify questions like we have?
I apologize, it does not appear in here, and I did not make it. Perhaps if I had, it would have answered all of these questions and saved
Very good,
you
I
and the
appreciate that.
department some time.
Right, so we have another week, perhaps 10 days of this process at a minimum. So this is part of the due diligence that we perform. We want to make sure that we are talking apples to apples, as you had described, and that these numbers are accurately depicted so that when we provide our recommendation to the full council, we can provide clarifications as well as we see the budget and what we've just finished reviewing.
Again, presented, you see the line for education, the $74,732,000. I think that was the number the president had referred to earlier. And again, being a numbers nerd, I saw the lines and the programs, and it made sense to me, but apparently I can do a better job explaining it to you.
All right, well,
and
thank
to
you.
the
We
public.
appreciate that explanation. Director Spellman, you do a fine job. There's no argument about that. However, we sharpen our pencils and have to do this exercise, and we're not just looking for something to talk about that doesn't necessarily have any meaning to it. We do feel this has some kind of meaning, and that's why we'd like to address it. So we'll set this issue aside for the time being, and we'll continue.
Understood.
Is that okay, Madam President? Anything further you may have? Okay.
And I appreciate the explanation, so thank you very much,
Okay.
Mr. Spellman, and Sean as well.
Very good, thank you. Anything further on this topic from the other committee members? No? All right, thank you. All right, let's move on then to the facilities and equipment maintenance. Mr. McGurty, welcome.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
All right, anything that you'd like to start with as far as a statement of any type before with questions?
No, I think what you have before you is what we're going to work with, so please feel free to fire away.
Thank you very much.
Yes, sir.
Okay. I'd like to ask Councilor Flaherty for any questions or comments that she may have.
Thank you. I want to talk for a moment about gasoline and diesel fuel. It looks to me like we've consolidated that line into one piece because it's up by quite a lot. So, but it looks like it's zeroed out in other places. Is that an accurate explanation of one of the things at play?
So what we did was, we wanted to bring all of the accounts into one instead of having them separated.
Yeah.
So we deleted some out, which, as a negative amount, and then we moved funds into there because we had two different pockets, and we just thought it would be more appropriate to have it in one. So.
I agree. I think it's a much more streamlined way of understanding our budget. And but I wanted to ask you, at this time last year, we were talking about gasoline and the anticipated increase. Because you've consolidated it, it's really hard for me to tell how much we think our costs are going up altogether.
Sure.
Can you describe the current contract or the state of affairs where our gasoline purchases for regular and diesel are concerned?
Well, we worked it out to where we felt comfortable with the amounts that were there. I don't know that there was an increase, but it wasn't substantial. So we will hope, and right now with the economy, we have no idea where it's going to go. More than likely up, but it could be the other direction for all we know. So we kind of, we just put it where we thought it was a reasonable amount. And that's all we really can do. I mean, the funding amounts have been changing so much, so that's kind of how we came about with the numbers. So it did increase it, but to where we felt it was sufficient for this year. But I mean, if you want to say, is it 100% sufficient? Well, you probably have to triple it because you don't know what's going to happen tomorrow. Everything's going through the roof. So it's kind of hard to say what's really going to happen. So we just put it in a best guess to what our needs are.
Are we in a contract for it?
I believe, yes, we do. We are, yes.
So we're in a contract. How long is the contract extend?
I think it's 3 years, right? 24? Oh, good. September 24.
Okay. So we're in a contract.
That's for usage. It isn't like we have to pay all the money up front. It's just as we use it, we pay for a certain price. We lock a certain price. We have a volume we can use that we have available, and then if we go over that volume, then there could be additional costs.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you know how much you're going to pay per gallon,
Yes.
and you can make an estimate for how many gallons you might use in any given year because we're not revolutionizing our fleet.
Yeah, I mean, we have, Duran, do you want to talk on that? Because Duran's the one who put it together. You can sit here.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Yes, we're on we made the decision, we locked for 2 years, back around, 2024 to 23. So about September 2022, we were watching the market, the prices were coming down, and we felt it was prudent at that time to try to get locked in. So like Director Arsenault had mentioned, that it's a price lock, and it's over a time period, but it's also volume based. So, and you have to buy it in blocks of gasolines. You have to buy it in a block of 48,000 gallons. So we calculate out, we estimate what we have used in the past, we estimate what we're going to use, and we get the block and the time period that kind of fits the situation best. When we do go over the usage, then it reverts back to market price. But we make our estimates, and we're really pretty close every year. And some years we're a little bit ahead, some years we're a little bit behind. But yeah.
Okay, and this contract that we've entered into, we use that to purchase gas for all the departments that use gas?
All the departments that fill up at the DPW fuel station, yes. It is not every single vehicle in town, but yes, DPW, Police Department, Council on Aging, smaller fire apparatus. I'm probably missing something, but yes, we purchase that for everybody that fuels up at our station at the highway barn.
Okay. But it doesn't apply to school buses?
The small buses fill up there. The large, full-size buses do not. I believe they have a company that comes and fuels them at the site, the parking lot.
That cost is still covered through the school budget for the large buses?
Yes.
Okay. But I think it sounds like you cover everything else in town.
Not the large fire trucks, and I think also Golf has their own small setup.
And they have their own funding, like police and fire, and they give it to you.
Yeah, so all the departments have their own funding, and we purchase it and then invoice the other divisions, departments, for lack of a better. Some of it's done internally with the Munis system, and some of it is just physically, we kind of, all right, you guys used, X amount of gallons for this month, and then they send a check over or transfer the money internally. So there's gasoline money in the police budget, there's gasoline fuel funding in the fire, et cetera, and then we make the purchase and then kind of distribute it.
And those costs are all based on the contract that you negotiated?
Yes.
Okay. Have you done any kind of analysis on, because it's consolidated, it is hard for me to see whether our costs are going up for gasoline or if they're coming down, because now we're locked into a contract and we chose a good, appropriate time to lock ourselves in, an advantageous time. And so I would like to be able to tell residents gas costs are going up or going down, but I can't tell because everything is consolidated in one spot. But you know what the rates are. What would you tell residents?
We feel we got a decent price on it. The actual dollar figure per gallon escapes me at the moment, but we're pretty much, I believe the request is level or maybe a little less than what it was last year.
I mean, it might be, but I would have to add it up. Maybe I'll do that.
Unfortunately, I can't speak to the police and fire and some of those other numbers. I mean, from what we purchase here for DPW for our allotment, it's even gone down just a little bit over last year.
Okay. Those are my facilities questions. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Council Flaherty. Council Maglio.
Thank you. So I have questions about the facilities work at the schools. Is this the time to ask that?
Sure.
We're on the facilities topics.
But there's a lot of school stuff coming later.
Right. So I think then what I will say is, I know that you've been asked that at every meeting that you've been to. I know that we asked you at one of our Ways and Means meetings. I know that you've been asked at the school committee. And one of the things that was really interesting, so I'll just share this very briefly, is that Blue Hills was here, I don't know, we've been here every night, whatever night they were here, and they were talking about their system for their building, their facilities system. And it was really interesting to hear them talk about, they have a Google Doc so that everybody has access to it. It lists everything that they need to do 5 years out. 1 year comes off as they check things off the list. The next year, 5 years out, gets added. They talked about a mandatory equipment rotation policy so that they pick what needs to be rotated out and brought in. And these were all just really good ideas, I am not a facilities expert, obviously, and I was thinking that would be perhaps a useful conversation for you to have with them in terms of looking at some of their systems and maybe having something like that ultimately so that people get a sense of what is actually going to happen at the schools, what we can tackle. I know that you've discussed having somebody, I think somebody coming in to do an actual assessment once some of the emergencies are out of the way, but I know that's the question I get asked all the time, and I'm sure you get asked even more often. I'll stop.
Yes.
Am I on? Yes, I am.
Yes.
Thank you. Through the chair, sir. We do have that program right now, and it does tell us when we need to go into certain equipment and when they have to be maintained. So we're putting that together. We're building a staff. So prior to that, the school had this system, the town had its own system. We've combined the systems. They used to be called Facilities Dude for Schools, and it's kind of an odd name, but it was a California group. So anyway, that's where we got them. So we've combined them. They do that. The problem is when they adopted these programs before we came on board, and even the ones we had, put out so many work orders that you'd have to have a staff of 80 just to keep up with them. So we've...
A staff of?
80 people just to
80?
handle... You would need 80 people to handle all the work orders that were coming through the system.
Yeah.
And so we have streamlined it. We push aside what we know we don't need to do. There's a lot of repetition in some of the items that come through. So we are putting people in the right place to address the preventive maintenance program, and they get the work orders, and they're going through the schools, which has not been done before. So we are doing exactly what you're talking about, but it's going to take us some time as we grow into this. I wish we could just say, yeah, we have enough people to do all this work. We actually right now don't, but we're headed in the right direction, and we're staying just ahead of the curve, and hopefully we're going to get better at this, and we certainly will.
That sounds great. One thing I will also mention is that they talked about, they have 3 shifts of people working on facilities at Blue Hills. I'm pretty sure that's what they described, so that there's things happening all the time, round the clock. So that means that there's a lot of people, and they clearly have enough people to do all of those things. So how long do you think it would take, well, no, not how long, if you had all the facilities, the trades, the various content knowledge workers, like what do you think is a good amount, a goal to shoot for the amount of workers we would need in order to do the preventive as well as some of the reactive?
Sure, that's a great question. I would anticipate you're looking at a 5-year program just to get it to where you need to operate on a day-to-day basis. The schools, not to point the finger at anybody, had the zero maintenance program in effect. I mean, they had 5 people in their facilities department, and they were just overwhelmed. Everything that was being done there was outsourced. So the costs were astronomical. Since we've come on board, we've removed a lot of the outside subcontractor work, controlled it in-house. We still sub a lot of work out, probably 25% of what used to be subbed out, because we have competent people that know how to get these buildings into control, and that's what we're doing slowly. And there is an awful lot of work yet to do. So that is part of the big picture. I know 5 years sounds like a long time. It took 5 years to get control of the town of Braintree, just our buildings, before we got involved with the schools. A similar situation, we had a small staff, but we picked at it, we knew what we were doing. We put upgraded systems in this building first, and then we worked our way through the town so that we got control over them. Right now, we're probably at 90% of our workforce is within the school buildings over this past 8 months since we have joined forces. Because the town buildings, we got them to a point where they can operate with minimal maintenance So we've accomplished that first goal. Obviously, we still have upgrades to do to our own buildings, but our concentration right now is into the schools to see if we can get a handle on the situations we have going on there.
Okay, thank you. I would say that, I mean, 5 years actually will go by very quickly
It
for
does.
those of us trying to, and for your crew to try and catch up with everything, but for the people in those schools, they will take forever to feel as though they're in a space that is adequate. So I know that it's just the way it is. We can't snap our fingers and just have it happen.
Certainly, and what goes along with that is not just having the people in place, but the costs are astronomical. So it's nice to want to do everything, but we have a budget as well, and we have to limit how far we can go. I mean, we would love to go and take all these problems on. We have to deal with the ones that we can afford to take on.
Are there priorities that we can't afford to do right now?
Right now, yes, we are concentrating on the school side. We're going to be hopefully doing 3 sizable abatement programs that we've hoped to have done. So the projects have been out to bid. We've got the prices in. There is going to be some issues about supporting the programs, maybe bonding them. I would defer that to Mr. Spellman. But we hope to take those projects on this summer. So we're going to implement an ongoing asbestos abatement program in our school buildings, which is long overdue. So it's a really great positive direction we're going in on that. We're also looking at bonding some additional monies so that we can take on some of the larger repair work. A lot of the mechanical systems, for instance, at the high school are dated. They are the original equipment. We can't get parts for them. So we will do an assessment. We'll bring an engineer in. We will make sure that as we replace the equipment, that it will all, when on its completion, it will all operate as one system. So we will stay ahead of the curve there. And we have the people in-house to keep an eye on it so that we will be able to control the future of how we deal with these buildings.
Okay. That's helpful. Thank you very much. I'm all
Thank you.
set. Thank you, Jim.
Thank you very much, Counselor. Madam President, any questions that you may have?
Thank you, Chairman Reynolds. I do have a couple of questions. And Mr. McGurty, if you don't have the answers this evening, if we can get them a subsequent evening, that would be wonderful. And I believe it was maybe 3 or 4 years ago we asked for this, so I'm asking for it again. It would be a list of all of our unused or vacant or underutilized town-owned buildings or other structures. I'd like and I did send this in writing, so their current assessed value, the current cost for upkeep and maintenance of each building, and then what our plan is as a community for redevelopment of those buildings. And I would like the same list for if there are any town-owned vacant lots or underdeveloped parcels. So again, their assessed value, the current cost for upkeep and maintenance of those lots, such as they may be, and then a plan for the redevelopment or any other revenue generation that may be derived from said buildings or lots.
Sure, that's a lot.
Yeah, and I did send that through the clerk to the chief of staff. I didn't expect you to have it today, but I wanted you to at least hear it from me directly, and thank you in advance for getting it.
Well, Madam President, thank you for the question. And yes, it will take a little bit to put it together to be accurate, but just so you know, we do have 2 vacant buildings. Obviously, there's one right across the parking lot, as we all know, is going to be an emergency call center, and that project is starting. We also have the Foster School. Most recently, it appears they may be looking to put in the Veteran Services, maybe moving up into that vacant building maybe short-term, maybe some other tenants, some veteran agencies from other towns may combine and join in there. So that is something that they're looking for to do up there. It's nothing cast in stone. I know the mayor wants to go and speak to the neighbors, obviously, so I don't want to step in front of the gentleman I have to answer for, or two, excuse me. So I know that that is something that's out there. We're up there now cleaning up a little bit more in that building. So that's one of the other vacant buildings. I know that the Beld building over on Allen Street, which I would defer to engineering, but I do believe that that's in the process of being sold, obviously. We do have a vacant building and parcel over on Elliott Street, over on the Braintree-Weymouth line. There's nothing really to update on that parcel at this time. There are a number of vacant parcels. I don't know all of them. I will put together that list. And that kind of takes us where we are on our vacant buildings at this point, but I will obviously put that list together for you.
Thank you, I appreciate that, and I didn't expect you to have even as much as you did off the top of your head, so thank you for that.
Through the chair, some
Yes.
of the lots may have conditions on them, things like that, so we'll try to give you as much information as we can. And I believe something like that has been put together in the past, so I don't think I think it is out there. Like I said, and there's not a lot of, as Mike indicated, there's not a ton of old, buildings that exist, except for, there's a couple, but there's not too many. But.
Hopefully it won't be that onerous a task then. Thank you. I appreciate it. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Madam President. I'd like to first address some of the questions that have been asked, just as a follow-up to, and then I have my own questions. So, most recent question is these buildings. And is the East Middle School maintenance building being utilized?
Yes, it is. We've taken it over from the facility side. When we joined forces, we've moved a lot of our operations up there for our equipment storage, and that's where we operate out of. Presently, right now, what we have up there is the equipment we use in the schools. We've brought it all into that one location so that we know where it's at, first of all. We can inventory it, and we can control how it's getting sent out to the different buildings. So that's what we're using that building for.
Great, I'm glad to hear that.
Yeah, it's
It
good.
was a good asset.
Yes, sir.
So that's good to hear. The Elliott Street building that you speak of, that you referred to, is that a habitable building? Structurally sound building?
Probably not. There's a lot. It's probably a building it's been basically condemned. It's an odd situation because the building itself structurally holds up a road, so it's not as though you can go in and just tear it down. So there are a number of other issues surrounding that property that have kept it in its present location.
So I would
in its,
probably safe
condition.
to assume that that's not something that looks like it's rehabable for the
No.
town's use.
Not, no,
Right.
no.
Okay.
No, it's not. It's not zoned properly. Number one, and it's not a ideal location. It's centered in a residential district. So,
Okay. What was the plan, and this one is, I'm going to direct this question to Director Arsenault. The plan on the soon-to-be vacated water and sewer building treatment plant.
Yeah.
What's the plan on that? Is that going to be a tear down?
No, so what we would like to do is keep maybe where the pump station is, that's kind of not too useful, so we might remove that one. But the other building, we would like to keep it from like a maintenance facility so that when people, because it's going to be a separate entity, they would go out and do maintenance and have their vehicles there and stuff like that to kind of maintain the grounds around the...
Right, they being what, water and sewer assets?
Yes.
Okay.
Because that'll be a separate enterprise, and they are overseeing all of the, Great Pond and the Richardi and all that stuff. So, but there's a lot of land out there that needs to be maintained, to cut the grass and make sure things are maintained properly. So my understanding is that we probably will have some vehicles and some, people that will be doing regular maintenance. So.
Terrific, thank you. Thanks for that. All right, I mean, I know it's a limited piece of property because of
Yes.
the access and the security that's required, so thank you. Then my next follow-up question has to do with the fuels. And I know, just to recognize one of the previous speakers, that was the Assistant Superintendent of DPW, Mr. Hulk. So,
Yep.
and don't go far, Mr. McGurty. So, all right. So, you had described about these, lack of a better term, lockdown contracts, price lockdown, right? What's the duration of those, generally speaking? A year, 2 years, 3 years?
It honestly, it varies. We were able to lock in at 2 years. You can lock in as little as 3 months. You can lock in per usage. It really is, it's an interesting process.
Okay, yeah, I'm a little bit familiar with it. I just wanted to make sure that I did understand that there is a variable time frame of what you can lock down. Okay?
Correct.
And this is part of a greater, I guess, it's a consortium of sorts of public utilities, public works and municipalities, correct?
Correct, yes.
Right.
The name escapes me, but it is from a consortium group, maybe Norfolk County
Okay.
Consortium. They go out to bid, and they provide periodic prices, and yeah, it is little as, 3 months, 6 months, out to 2-3 years. It's very market-driven. It's almost like the stock market. You call them up in the morning, and it's,
Right.
variable price kind of every day.
Right, I'm familiar with a program similar to or actually it may be the type of program that Bell uses. Bell describes how they're able to maintain cost controls. And one of the things that they do because of their plants, they have natural gas, they have diesel fuel, et cetera, that for the different facilities that they maintain and that they use to generate electricity. Part of their strategy is they go out multiple years in advance and lock down these contracts, these futures contracts, and it helps them maintain a locked down dollar amount so that it is a cost that they can use for forecasting tools multiple years out as one of the elements of what's the future cost of creating energy. One big element is what's the energy source that we're using to create the electricity. In this case, it's natural gas, diesel fuel. I see that there is I was wondering if you had ever looked into any of those types of options, other than just the consortium that the town has relied upon in the past.
No. I
Okay.
will say when we were going through this process about a year ago, through the consortium and everything else, the diesel, their buyers who were having a hard time getting a bid or a lock-in price 2 years out because they didn't exist because the market was so volatile. That's what we were running into last year, but they were able to secure one, and again, through the mayor's office, through, Director Arsenault and everybody, we felt it was best for the town to lock in at that point.
Right. The volatility of the prices, certainly, it's causing us a lot of headache and uncertainty. And I also understand one of the elements to the price that you actually achieve is the bulk, correct?
Correct.
And that's the benefit of the consortium, that buying power,
Correct.
right? So I understand all of that, but it's just something to keep in mind that I'm wondering if that is something of interest to the DPW to pursue potential cost savings, to lock down cost savings once the prices come down naturally. You wouldn't lock in at these higher prices. It really wouldn't make sense. But again, that's a calculated risk that, your advisors, your financial advisors, and budget forecasters could take a look at. So thank you for entertaining that question. So I'll go back now to Mr. McGurty. Thank you. All right, so head count. What is the current head count, authorized head count of all facilities today?
Today,
That would include filled and unfilled positions.
22 on the town side, 45 custodians on the school side, 5 maintenance personnel on the school side. Presently, we're proposed to pick up some additional custodians for the New South School. The number is still being debated.
So you have a count of roughly 72.
That is correct, and, right, and it's 72 to 77.
With casual employees.
That is correct, with casuals.
Right, with the casual employees. So yeah, page, I think it is found on tab L, line, page 84, or 83. So how many of these positions have you had, or how many presently are not filled, are vacant positions?
Right now, we have a laborer's position that's not filled. We have 2 custodians that we hope to be filling. We have an office manager's position that we're looking to fill, and a custodial manager.
So that's roughly, well, I got to count about 6?
Yes,
6.
roughly.
Or 7?
I believe it was 6, but
6.
but where we may, if we do not open the old South Junior High this year, we would not be putting on as many additional custodians. So there's there may be a shortage this year, and then we may be looking for additional staff for next year.
Okay, so of these 6 positions that are unfilled out of your 72 allocated, how many have been vacant for the entire fiscal year, going back to July 1st of last year? Do you have any positions that have remained open and unfilled throughout the year?
No, we did not. We transferred a position, but we did not have any open ones. Everything we had was filled. And we're still short. We have a number of casual individuals that have helped out to get us over the top.
Right, and so that kind of reconciles back to a question you had answered for Councilor Maglio concerning what's the idea. You had mentioned 80 would be a count that you would be comfortable as a minimum covering your requirements?
That's probably the number you would be looking at. We could survive. Obviously, we will survive. We will get through. There are certain positions that their job descriptions have not even been written yet. We need to bring in some technical IT manager as we bring all these buildings together with their BMS systems. They're all different. So we're gathering all that information up. When we finally do get that information, we'll make that decision on what would be the best position and how we will address it.
Great, thank you. And HVAC, is that another one that you were looking at?
That is another one. We would have liked to have gotten that position this year. It does not look like it's going to make the budget. I mean, they're tight budgets for everybody. We do understand that. We will be able to maintain our preventative maintenance program. We will grow on it within people within our own department.
Terrific, thank you very much.
Yes, sir.
I appreciate that. Okay, so I've got a few other questions here concerning line items. These questions, I know that the facilities team has been an evolving asset to the town since 2017. 2017 is when you started and stood up
Correct.
the facilities team. I'm looking at the salaries of an increase of 14% for department head and an increase of 22% for the assistant department head. Naturally, those are numbers that will jump out at somebody.
Yes.
So
Certainly.
is there an explanation on that, or would you feel more comfortable with the director answering that question?
Well, it's twofold. The position of a director of facilities, of a facilities department this size, there's 2 million square feet of buildings that we manage. The market rate at the time that the position was requested to be moved into that was the range that we would be looking at, compatible with other communities that size, and not just that size, but also operating with the schools. So to a facilities director who would handle a department this size with townwide buildings and schools, that is a middle of the ground salary range for that type of position. And the amount of time that an individual has to put into this job to make it work, it's a 7-day-a-week job. I answer the phone 24/7, and it's a very technical job, and that is not an unreasonable salary request.
And I'm not asking you to
No,
defend
I
it.
understand
Yeah.
that. That's how we came up with that number.
So there's comps. There
That
are
is
comps
correct.
that you would use.
There was comps made for it, yeah.
Okay, and what factors into your salary in this particular case, and certainly the DPW director can confirm this, it is, what is the scope and breadth of responsibilities and actual physical assets? That is a big contributing component of the final salary in this particular case for the director?
Yes, so, I don't know if this is going, or, so when through the mayor's office, they looked at all of what they feel was appropriate, given the responsibilities for not only doing the town buildings, but all of the school buildings. And Mike's responsibilities are multiplied times about 5 or
Right.
6. So
Okay.
therefore,
So
we...
You've confirmed my question for me.
Okay.
So I just for the sake of time,
Okay, sure.
and thank you. I didn't mean to cut you off there.
No problem.
All right. 22% increase for the assistant department head. Can you give me a little insight into that?
What happens is, when we took over these schools, their operational manager's position was similar in salary to the one that I now hold with the town side and the school combined. Actually, it's a little less.
The business agent that was held by Mr. Cronin?
That is correct.
Okay.
Finance and, yes.
Right.
Correct. So the assistant facilities director's position is doing actually the job that I used to do. He's in control of all the field operations, and his particular job falls in that same category. Again,
assistant
it's a
department head.
7 days a week job. Every time there's an emergency, he's there, and he controls all the projects that we have going on school-wide. He's on site, he's meeting with the contractors, and he's getting the work orders out to the staff, and he's monitoring all the work in the field that I could do that I just can't do. You just cannot do all that work by
Understood.
yourself. Yeah.
So is there any other responsibilities that the assistant director undertakes other than what you've just articulated?
Well, I would imagine, I think I covered everything. I hope I did.
Vehicles? Maintenance
We
program?
do have, well, we do. We have he does. Under myself, we also have a vehicle maintenance manager position, which he is also it's a working position, so it's like having an additional mechanic, so that he is in charge of the distribution of the work to the other mechanics, and that's like having an additional body on site.
So the mechanics
Correct.
that are underneath the DPW umbrella fall under your management?
Yes,
Okay.
correct.
I think there were 3 at one time,
That is correct.
and still you maintain 3?
Yes,
Okay. And that would be one of the 72 positions under the 22 town positions?
correct.
Okay, thank you. All right, thank you. Very good. I'm going to walk through, what is the water and sewer increase of 200%? You had a $9,000 down to a $27,000 increase.
Do you want to bring it up?
That would be on page 59 of tab F.
So that account had been underfunded for the last
I'm
three-
sorry, could you just identify?
Sorry, my name is Rob DeVito, Finance Manager for
Thank
DPW
you.
and Facilities. That water and sewer account had been underfunded for the last number of years, so I budgeted at an appropriate level for actual amounts. So for example, in FY '23, the budget for that account was $9,000, but the actual spending was around $27,000.
Right, we see here 9,000 you were allocated last year for the upcoming for the current fiscal year, and your actuals are 31,000?
Correct.
Okay. And what exactly is the water and sewer? What, in terms of the facilities team, what is that line item?
That's the water and sewer usage for all the town buildings, so the highway department, 85 Quincy Ave, the facilities department building, a number of other buildings that I can't think of off the top of my head.
That actually makes a lot of sense. So that filled in.
Yep.
Yeah, that answer satisfies my curiosity on that item. You've explained it. Outside, and I don't know, it's cut off. It is line. It's another 200% increase. It's outside M/ and then it's cut off.
That's motor vehicle repairs. So there are 5 accounts that were in the equipment maintenance program that we consolidated within facilities just to make it more streamlined, and that's one of them. So it's gasoline, diesel, outside motor vehicle repairs, tires and tubes, and equipment repair. Those 5 accounts also existed in the equipment maintenance program, but we put them all into the facilities program, so they're all in one bucket now.
And does that represent all vehicles of this town's fleet, or is it just DPW vehicles?
It's all town vehicles. I think
It is.
excluding police, if I'm correct.
I do recall that there was, in the past, that the police department and the fire department had different, I know way back they had their own mechanics. And then under the new form, or the revised form of government as a mayor form of government, they maintained their own maintenance, and then they got laid off due to cost consolidation requirements at the beginning of the mayoral form of government. So now, as we've worked our way through it through the years, I think this is an efficient process to have it all in-house.
Just to answer a prior question on gasoline and diesel, Councilor Flaherty, you had asked what the amount was. I have a spreadsheet going. So the gasoline budget was down 30,000 compared to FY '23, what we're proposing. And diesel was down, I believe, 20,000 compared to FY '23, if you combine both accounts in both programs. So the proposal for those 2 accounts are actually lower than last year.
Well, that's good news for Braintree.
Terrific. And I'm just going to direct this next question to, and you can, if you could just, I still have some more
Sure.
questions, you may be the one to answer them, but from a budget movement standpoint, these categories that were just described as now being consolidated all underneath the maintenance program of the facilities team, where all of our fleets are being addressed, would each one of, for example, I'll take the police department, they had tires and tubes on their budget last year, and now is it zeroed out?
Yeah, so the police and fire, they still have their own, their own process on what they do, so that we haven't, I don't believe, we've incorporated them out. I mean, Right, Mike? I think they have privatized.
Can
didn't
you
they?
reconcile that with the answer I just got, that all fleets are now being handled?
All within the DPW.
All the DPW fleet. That excludes the police department and the fire department.
Yeah.
The only thing we share is the gas.
Right,
Pump.
but if I'm talking, for example, this tires and tubes has increased by 650% over last year's allocation. 4,000, now it's 30,000.
Right.
That's the
And when
consolidation we talked about, bringing all of them into to one.
All what?
All of the accounts. We have multiple accounts on it within the DPW.
Yes, Sid, please.
In the Public Works Department, they've consolidated their vehicle maintenance and tires, where in prior years, you'll see
So I'll see offsets in other sections of the
should be
DPW
zeros in
department
other programs for
that will
tires
match
and-
this number, that will reconcile for me.
Yes, it would reduce it down, and actually, I believe there was a net reduction a little bit, so, overall.
Okay, so, I'm sorry then, it may have been my misunderstanding with the answer that I received previously to the question of, is this particular team, this group in the facilities and equipment maintenance, are they performing maintenance for other departments other than the DPW?
No, right now, we are not, we would like to, but right now, we're not at a place where we can manage those other departments, unfortunately.
So the only town-wide consolidation that occurs in this budget for facilities and maintenance is the fuel?
No, it's a number of things. Mike, you can, yeah. It's the fuel, it's the tubes and tires, it's,
The fuel, the tubes and tires. What, before you had.
I'm sorry, I may have confused you with that question. It was a bit incomplete. My understanding, if, again, and just please bear with me, my understanding is what I'm hearing is that this line represents a consolidation of all DPW-related tubes and tires,
Yes.
line items from your various sub-budget categories across
Yes.
DPW.
yes.
Correct.
Correct.
That I understand clearly.
Yes.
Yeah.
What I'm trying to reconcile is whether or not I heard correctly or understood, I misunderstood an answer that, does the maintenance, facilities and equipment maintenance team provide services, consolidated services for departments outside of DPW?
No. I mean, might be
Well,
some minor things we do, but
We work on the vehicles that we got from the schools, which we now use in our maintenance department.
Right.
We will work on a vehicle that may be in the building department outside the DPW if they come in looking for service for a certain piece of equipment. We do not service the police department. We do not service the fire department vehicles.
Okay.
Ultimately, that would be the goal, that we would do the basic services initially and take on more responsibility and grow the repair side of the facilities department to handle more of that, saving the
All
town
right, so
more
that's a
money.
goal.
Yes, sir.
Got it.
right now, we don't have the facilities, you know, and we don't have the building, is an older building, as you're aware. There's a lot of improvements that could be made, and I think, and be a little bit more functional in the future. And then at that point, we may be able to take in things like oil changes and vehicle tire tubes and tires for the other departments, but we're just not there yet,
Okay.
unfortunately.
Thank you, I appreciate that. My last question on this budget item for facilities, mileage has increased by 400%. Is that also a consolidation of mileage items from other sub-budgets in the DPW?
A portion of it is, and a portion of it was increased. What we have is, we have some casual employees that will travel from one or two buildings, so we have to compensate them, so it's additional use. We don't have enough vehicles for all our staff.
So it's a privately owned vehicle they would have to utilize in performing their job?
That is correct, and that may not even be enough. We do have a few custodians and, well, they're laborers that work in a number of different buildings, and we send them around. We don't have vehicles for everybody. They will, on occasion, use their own vehicle, and we compensate them through that account.
Great, and you would use the same standard, the state standard, on that calculation?
Yes, sir, we'd use the same one townwide that we use.
Terrific, thank you. That's all that I have for the facilities.
Yes, sir.
So unless there are any other further questions, follow up from any of the council members on the facilities budget? No, we are all set. Oh, yes. Council Flaherty.
I have one broad question, which I forgot to ask earlier, and that is, in the town council budget, we found that in departments with overlapping needs, specifically in the area of advertising, sometimes because our budget is so low, we sometimes borrow from other departments to cover mandated costs like advertising. And I don't think advertising needs are so extensive for you, but my question is, because I'm trying to get at how widespread this is generally in town, because you have overlapping needs and with other departments, do you find that sometimes other departments knock on your door when they have shortfalls and ask the DPW to cover in certain areas, and then if you're able, then you cover their costs for them?
Well, it has to be appropriate. Like, you can't take water and sewer money and, for instance, to, repair a stormwater pipe or something
but
like
if
that,
the-
you know what I mean? So you just have to be appropriate, like if it's within a revolving fund or an enterprise fund, I should say, that has to be segregated out. But if there are opportunities between two general fund departments, for instance, and there's a critical project, sometimes we work together to try to fund something. But I wouldn't say that we actually fully fund, we try to balance it as best we can.
Well, what I'm getting at is if the police department, for example, had, an unusually large number of tire and tubes problems, and you had extra money in your budget for tires and tubes, is it common for another department to kind of ask you to cover their needs in that?
I don't think so.
No.
I really haven't seen that. I mean,
Okay.
we might share something, like say, hey, we're doing a common project, let's put some money together. But I haven't really seen that, where it's usually each department has their own funding.
Okay, thank you. That answers that question.
Thank you. Thank you, Council. Okay. You're all set, Mr. McGurty.
Good.
Thank you very much for your
Yes,
time.
sir. Thank you.
All right, next up on our budget review of DPW, the next category we have is DPW equipment maintenance, and as was just explained previously,
Okay, I guess there's
we
someone else
see here
before you.
that of the 5 items that have been listed here, they are all 100% in the negative, so essentially they are zeroed out and have been consolidated
Yes,
as
that's
we
the
have
one.
described.
That's within the same, area,
Okay,
yeah.
I would just want to ask, does anyone have a question on this page?
Yeah.
No? Thank you.
Okay.
All right, moving then on to engineering. Are there any questions, comments from any of the councilors? And start with you, Council Flaherty.
No questions from me.
All right, thank you. Council Maglio.
No questions.
All right, Madam President. And I do not have any questions either. So, John, there you go. Thank you, Mr. Thompson. All right. Next up is the Construction Administration, DPW Construction Administration. I will ask if there is are there any questions, and we'll start with you, Councilor Flaherty.
No questions from me.
Very good. Councilor Maglio.
I don't really understand what this department is. Could I get the 22nd version?
Well, it's the 22nd version is that it's basically construction administration. So all the projects we have, capital projects, they help manage. They do the design, they go out in the field, they make sure it's being constructed properly. They basically oversee all of the water and sewer, roadway, just about everything as far as the town. John?
So it's a different engineer.
It's sort of an extension of the engineering department, yes.
Yes.
Okay, so then, because the engineering department, there's 2 staff, right?
Under the 4004 DPW engineering, there's just one position, which is the division manager. And then under the construction administration budget, there's 2 employees there. There's a senior engineering aide and a junior civil engineer.
But also, in addition, you'll see later within the Water and Sewer Fund, there are other engineering positions because there's a lot of work done through Water and Sewer. We do a lot of project work, plans, generation, all that stuff. So there are some positions that are directly in Water and Sewer as well.
So it seems like things are really integrated, and so sometimes they would work with you as the town engineer, but then they would report to someone else because they're in a different department, maybe report to you,
Yes.
or, okay. And they service the various functions. So they would service water, stormwater, sewer, road, et cetera.
Yes.
Okay,
Correct.
good.
Yep.
Thank you.
Very good. Any questions, Madam President? Okay, I don't have any questions, or just a comment. It's a lean budget for you guys in this area.
Yes.
So, you actually have less money with the 33% increase, I should say decrease in eyeglasses.
Yeah.
All right, so, and everything else is a 0.
See, I need the eyeglasses.
Yeah, that's the first time I've seen you wear them, to tell you the truth. All right, thank you. And next up is Highway. So, back to Assistant Director Hulk. Welcome back.
Thank you.
Okay. I'm going to ask Councilor Flaherty if she would like to open up with any questions or comments on this category.
Oh, thank you. There are a few areas in highway where costs have gone up, and I just want to know what's driving those costs. The first of them has to do with labor and custodians. That's 20.7% up. Is that a consolidation, or is it just a contractual increase?
Primarily contractual, what we maybe expect through the upcoming negotiations, and there is one body in there for the
there's
mayor
one-
wanted to try to instigate a sidewalk paving reconstruction program, which you saw in the capital budget for the paving machine itself. So one of those bodies is accounted for in that increase.
Yes, so through the chair? Yes. So the one position he's talking about would actually be a transfer. So you'd have funds coming from Water and Sewer to help pay for that. And because we do a lot of water projects, that we destroy the sidewalks when we do that, so we felt it was justified to assist the general fund of trying to repair the sidewalks when they do their water work. So.
Okay, so then these numbers across the budget reflect anticipated COLA increases per the contract, which is not finalized?
Yes. Oh, what?
Clarification from the...
No, it's, we're estimating nothing's been, you want to talk on it? Sounds like it.
No, we asked departments not to put the projected COLAs into their line items for the 24 budget because the contracts have not been settled. They're in a separate line item within the finance budget, that reserve line.
So you accounted for it there.
For the towns, yes.
Sorry, back to you, Councilor.
That's fine. So it does not account for the anticipated increases that we'll see? Because those increases are...
I think when they're trying to funding for the union negotiations, this funding, that does not the COLA inside.
The cost of living is not in those lines.
So,
Does this include increases?
yes, the union negotiations.
The prior union negotiations for the consolidation of the facilities. So the adjustment for that is in there, correct?
No, this is for the negotiations, the union negotiations that we estimate the cost to be. Not the COLA, yeah. 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 So it's basically estimated costs that we project the changes we'll make regarding the ASME contract, but not the COLA, I guess is what I'm being told.
Okay. The other increases that I want to focus on have to do with tree removal and leaf mulching. Those seem to be up. What's driving those costs?
Primarily the market, the tree removals. We're coming off a 3-year bid where our contract prices were locked. That is going out to bid opening June 1st, and we're expecting an increased cost hourly and per the bid that will come in, as well as just trying to bring the number up to where we have historically been spending most recently. It kind of reduced over a couple of years, but the labor costs associated with the contract and the bid price will be higher than they were currently this year.
How long are those contracts for, generally?
This year we are going out for a 3-year bid. Generally, in the past, we did the 1-year bid, but then it's both parties agree on it, extendable twice. So we went out to bid 3 years ago, amended the contract to extend it the 2nd year, extend it the 3rd year, and then this year we have to go out and do a new bid process, kind of start from scratch. But this year's contract, for save some paperwork steps, will be for 3 years.
Okay. And that's the same for leaf mulching?
The leaf mulching is a combination, that's mainly driven by the market, the lack of ability to remove the product from the compost site. Used to be able to have companies that would come in and they'd pretty much screen the material for no cost to the town. They would own the product, and then it would get rid of it. So residents come up, they leave the material, gets turned, composts, and then we either have to pay to have it hauled away unscreened, or the contractor would come in, do it, process the material for free, leave a very minimal amount for the town, but then they own the product. Nobody will do it anymore due to fuel costs, due to trucking costs, due to everything in the market. We cannot give the stuff away, for lack of a better term. So it's driven primarily with the need for removing the site to keep it operational and keep it open for the residents.
Okay. Aside from that, there's street surveys and highway surveys, or anyway, it's street sur and highway su. Can you tell me what those mean?
Street surface, account number ends in 553006, street
Yes.
surface treatment. So we use that for, sometimes for crack sealing. There's a mastic process by basically anything that treats the roads. Occasionally from year to year, we'll take the vegetation spraying that we contract out to spray the curb lines for all that. That can come out of street surface treatment. The one below it, highway supplies, that's basically, anything from chainsaw blades, motor oil, brooms, shovels, anything that, we kind of need to operate. That it's a little bit of a catch-all, but, operating supplies.
So the street surface treatments, you repair cracks, you spray for vegetative to prevent plants from growing up in cracks, and do you also repair potholes using that line item?
To some extent, yes. We do have a specific patching line item, but yes, any various treatments for the roads.
I'm just trying to differentiate between what you use this line item for versus what the annual roadway and infrastructure program covers. So this is for repairs, and that is for new?
Correct, yes. More repair, spot maintenance, We're not doing any wholesale roads or anything out of this account. That's under
Okay.
the engineering or the water and sewer project, depending on.
But when you look at what you're doing to make spot repairs, you do that out of the patching line and then also the street surfacing line?
Correct.
Any other lines?
No?
Okay. So that's all I have for highway, because we're going to treat sidewalks later on a different page. I just want to make sure that I don't not ask.
Okay, so you can hold that point, and we'll get through this.
Okay.
Counselor Maglio, questions?
So my question is actually more general and might be something that I should hold off on as well. I'll ask it, and then you can tell me to wait on an answer. How's that? So when I look at the kinds of calls that I get, and then I look in the budget to see, okay, where might that fit? So I look at highway and I think, oh, this is where like a lot of the see-click fix stuff goes. And the highway, they're coming out, they're looking at trees, they're looking at roads, they're looking at curbs, then they're looking at sidewalks, they're looking at drains. So this question covers all of those things. And the question is, this seems like there's two functions in this grouping of departments. One, that it's reactive, and it's where there's something is damaged, somebody notices a problem, a branch is stuck in a drain, a tree is dirty, whatever the situation is. And then the other is proactive. It's the planning. It's how many roads are we going to get to and how many repairs are we going to make. So my questions are related to those two topics. So is this the time that I can ask that?
So I guess under that, this program, the 06, the highway, the 07, the drains, the 08, the sidewalks, are all reactionary, yes. They're for repairs, primarily repair and maintenance related.
Okay.
Any longer-term planning, larger expenses would kind of reside with engineering and their budgeting process.
Okay, and these are sort of integrated, because where there's a road issue, then there's usually there might be a sidewalk issue connected to the road issue, right?
Correct.
Okay, so what would you say is the turnaround time, and do you think it makes sense in terms of capacity for a town of this size?
I mean, we operate within the constraints we have, and we do what we can and stretch the money as far as it goes.
Okay, so that is very much appreciated, because we certainly want to look at our bottom line. But I'm wondering, when you think about the list of things that are coming in, that people are calling, and people are, creating whatever the terminology is, a case or a ticket out of see-click fix, or they're calling up, or they're calling their counselor, and their counselor is emailing you. What do you think about? Do you think if we had a bigger department? Do you think if we had more equipment? Or do you think that those things are like, however long it's taking is the absolute appropriate time for it to take?
Well, can I, through the chair? It's not just that, it's also like when typically what happens is when we see, like, say there's a crack or a repair needed on the road, right, sidewalk, well, we can't bring a truck out just for one disturbed area, because then we'd throw away the rest of the asphalt, because you have to take a minimum amount. So we kind of go out and say, okay, these are the roads over here, there's another one, we pile them together, and then we then address those concerns.
And so is there some sort of an internal tracking system that you use for that? So, like, do you have an interactive map that you log this on, or like, how does that happen, and where is that technology in this budget?
Ben, do you want to talk about how you track it? Or?
I mean, we have daily worksheets and staff is constantly, you know, rotating through the town and noting things, a combination of combining see-click fix requests, phone calls to the office, and all that. That's how, I guess, the work is driven.
Okay, so is there like some sort of, you know, proprietary DPW software that tracks that? How do you manage that?
Well, we have the C-Click Fix, obviously, information on that, but we also have the, what is the software we get?
Oh, the,
Can't take it right top, man.
it's a little bit like a work order software, but it's not, it's
that's
more an after the fact, just the foreman kind of logs what they did for the day.
We do have software that tracks it. We put down, you know, what we did and stuff like that through a software program. For some reason, I can't think of it off the top of my head, but we do have a software that we use. We can get that to you if you'd like. So.
I just want to know, like, what that capacity is, and if you think that capacity is adequate for a town, for our town.
Yeah, I believe it is a good software. It kind of tracks what you can put a lot into it. Sometimes they may not be able to put as much information as they would like because of time constraints, but there is information you can enter into it, and so we can do sum totals and things like that. But so it is a good tracking program. But there are also times when things get crazy and they go out and they, you know, have to do they put little notes and stuff like that. So because they're busy, but they try to enter it in as much as they can. So they're not perfect, I guess, but
Right. So let me ask this then. Is there ever a time where you say, we hit everything we wanted to do for March? Or is it a constant, we've cleared up this pile and now there's this next pile of things, and there's stuff that has been open for 6 months that we just can't get to, and then there's emergencies that are coming up that are being taken care of every week? Like, I'm trying to get a sense of kind of the rhythm. And I know that everybody is working hard and everybody is doing everything they can. And so this is not a performance question, this is a capacity question and a reasonableness question. When we're looking at cuts year after year to budgets, and we're looking at different things removed, what that does then is that has a cumulative impact on the output that departments can have. And so when departments must continue to do the same or more with less, there's an impact. And it's hard to get to every neighborhood by the end of the year. It's hard to get to every street. It's hard to do every sidewalk that needs to be done. So how do you decide that this is enough or it's not enough, or we did great, we hit our goals? Like, how does that happen in your department?
well, I mean, we basically try to obviously if something's critical, like we have a sinkhole, you know, or you know, like a big hole in the ground, and we
So
drop it.
safety.
So there are times when we have to drop everything. We may be working on a project and say, oh my God, this is a critical item. We have to get out there, like a manhole cover comes off.
Yeah.
We have to address it. So, and unfortunately, that does take away from some of the regular activities we're trying to, like I said, get everything together and take care of some of the routine functions. And sometimes stuff like that pulls us away. But I mean, it's critical. We have to if it's a public safety item. And so that's kind of the distractions we get. You know, sometimes something comes up, or we all have to run and go take care of it, and it does make things take a little longer, unfortunately. But we do our best to try to, you know, as much as we can, try to treat every request with the importance. But like you said, it does get stacked up over time, and we don't have the resources we need, and we do the best we can, that's all.
So what would happen if let me back up a little. Is there a communication mechanism that exists within the department, not what we talked about before, the link on the website in terms of, hey, we're coming to your neighborhood and you're going to see the street dug up because National Grid is doing something. Is there some other kind of communication mechanism that if you could have that capacity, it would be helpful or it would be useful?
Ben?
Like, do you have everything you need?
As far as staffing? No.
Yeah.
As far as, of course, we'd need more. If we had more staffing, we could do more. There's no question.
So what what does that mean? Would that shave like turnaround time, like seasonally, you'd be able to prep for the summer more in the spring, or does it mean like week by week there'd be a faster turnaround?
It means that we'd be, first of all, we'd have more staff out there looking at things, so obviously that would be helpful. I mean, we all look. I mean, all my staff looks, and if there's an issue, and they report it if they see it. But there's more staff out there. It gives them more flexibility to do other things, There may be certain functions that we don't, we can't perform because we're just trying to do the bare minimum, but we may be able to do, for instance, more beautification stuff. Or, there's different things we could do if we had more staffing, no question. But, unfortunately, we have a budget that we have to keep to, and, you put more in one, you get less in another, and it's just the way of the world. I mean, and especially with Proposition 2.5, you're just restricted. I mean, you only have so much you can spend.
Yep.
You don't really have that ability to do that, So we understand, but we try to make the best of what we have and try to do the best we can to provide as much response as we can.
Okay. All right. Thank you. I was trying to get a feel for that, so thank you. I appreciate it.
No problem.
Okay. Thanks.
Thank you, Counselor. Madam President, any questions?
Nope.
Okay. Just one for clarification. The add to staff that was referenced earlier, did I understand correctly that was really a zero net effect across DPW? You transferred a position?
Yes, from water and sewer, yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you. All right. That's all I have. And from a highway well, actually, one more. What is Grail replacement? Is that it? Or rail?
Guardrail.
Guardrail
replacement. So,
okay.
I mean, hopefully self-explanatory, but
Yeah.
fences, guardrails sometimes.
So we have a 50% increase. And what's that attributed to?
Material costs, that's another contract that, again, it's relatively expensive, so we do contract that through MAPC. So again, that's a competitive bid process, and all the rates are going up.
Great. And snow removal, that's not in this section, I take it?
No.
In the 11 program.
Great. We'll get to that later. So right now, we're good to go on that, and I'm moving on to the DPW drains. Any questions, Counselor? Is there a comment or a question? Okay. Any counselors, any questions or comments, Counselor Flaherty?
No.
Counselor Maglio?
No.
Madam President, nor do I. So we will move on to DPW sidewalks. I think this is where Counselor Flaherty may have had a question. The floor is yours.
Yeah. So in the capital budget, we have the annual roadway and infrastructure program, and we have purchase for a sidewalk paver and then a sidewalk plow. And I'm curious, we always have this sidewalk line. What do we use that for?
Appropriate sidewalk repairs. Sometimes it's, washout, so we'll buy gravel materials, products for repairs of sidewalks. If we specifically, sometimes it's hard to decipher because the crew goes out with the hot mix and they patch whatever has to be fixed. But any larger sidewalk patches can be attributed to this account. Occasional small curbing jobs, repairs that we may do in-house to purchase, basically the purchase of materials to do smaller necessary repairs on the sidewalks.
That answers my question. Thank you.
Thank you, Council Flaherty. Council Maglio, any questions or comments?
Nope.
All right, Madam President. Thank you. Just one question I have, and that would be, I'm looking at your current year actuals. You have pretty much a very consistent number that you budget each year, and it looks like in the previous three fiscal years, you spent pretty darn close to what you're projecting for your fiscal '24. What is the anomaly of the current year, why it's only at $7,000 with a month and a half left?
It's just getting caught up. No, we've got a couple of projects, some small concrete intersections and things like that, that are probably not reflected in this most recent, the one that was printed out at the time.
Okay.
We will be close again to that final number.
You
Just through the winter time, there's not as much construction stuff,
Sure.
so this is kind of just catching up through the end of the year.
That's very good, thank you, I appreciate that explanation. Okay, next up is street lighting. Do we have any questions from any of the councilors?
Well,
Council Flaherty.
I just, we have a 16.7% drop in street lighting funding. Are we doing less with street lighting this year?
No, what happened is, years ago, Beld increased the prices of lighting because they were going to change to LEDs. And so they've done that, and it was a period of time when that increased cost was set for. So that higher price has sunsetted, and this is the new final. It decreased a little bit each year, and this is now the final actual price of the cost to Beld for the lighting.
Oh, so we paid for a transition to LEDs, and now we're reaping the rewards of that transition.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yep.
Planning that pays off.
Yep.
Love to see that.
It's,
That's all I have
good
on.
environmentally and money-wise.
Couple of wins there. Nice job. Any questions, Council Maglio?
No, that answered it.
Madam President. Very good. Thank you very much. On then to DPW traffic. And we'll start with Council Flaherty.
Just one question on traffic, and that is we're spending twice as much on signal maintenance, and I'm curious where we're going to focus those efforts.
The town over the last three or 4 years, have purchased a lot of those, smiley face speed radar signs, updated school zone signs. So in general, we just have a lot more electronic signs that need a little bit of periodic maintenance, things like that. So we increased RRFBs, the flashing crosswalk signals. We've been installing more of those around town. And, unfortunately, nothing lasts forever, and they come with, small maintenance costs at this point, but our variable message boards, 2 of them are, I want to say 2011s, so they're up on like 12 years old. We did purchase a new one, I believe, back in 2020, but again, it's just repair costs, and some of that traffic signal maintenance as well is push buttons. Anytime somebody gets called in, crosswalk things like that don't work. That's a little bit of that's a pocket of funding for minor repairs. Again, once we get into larger overall replacements of some of the traffic signal equipment, we try to look for capital items and things like that for some of that work.
I understand. Thank you. That's all.
Thank you. Councilor Maglio.
No, I am okay on this one. Thank you.
Madam President.
Good, thank you.
Okay, thank you. And I'm assuming, so from a signal standpoint, I'm good to go. The next topic will be snow and ice. So, Councilor Flaherty.
I don't have a lot of questions for snow and ice, but I was looking at salt. This year we didn't have very much snow or ice. This was a very, very mild winter. Looks like we budgeted, however, even still, we budgeted less than we spent. What happened with salt?
Well, do you want?
We consolidate with the town of Medfield, who handles the bidding process. Every year it goes out to bid. We generally don't know that number until October. That's when they open up their bid for that. But just in 2019, we were at about $40 a ton for salt. Then it went to 62, and this last current year, we were paying 72 and change per ton for salt. Again, kind of market-driven, and we never know exactly how much we're going to end up using, and some years we're ahead, some years we're behind.
Okay, because I noticed you went with the same number again, even though we spent more this year. So you feel like the anomalies of the market.
Explain that. Through the chair.
Yes.
So it's a balance. We never know what the final numbers are going to be because, this year actually we did pretty good and we're able to turn some money back, but that's an anomaly. So we try to balance it the best we can, just saying, we think some of it's going to go here and there. If we put in if we put a safe number in, it would blow things up because, we would have money sitting there for the year. That doesn't make a lot of sense. So we try to, and we have been increasing through the years a little bit each year. So, this is about a fair an assessment as we can make. So that's all. It's the numbers we just don't know. Unfortunately, we don't control the weather. So.
Okay, those are all my questions for
Thank
snow
you,
and ice.
Councilor. Councilor Maglio, any questions?
My salt curiosity has been satisfied.
Madam President, any questions?
I have one quick question, or maybe it's quick, hopefully it is, because I know it's getting on. This is the one part of our budget that we're allowed to carry a deficit on, is that correct? Okay. Yeah. And my understanding was that we were going to try to incrementally increase this year over year to get to about 800, 850. Is that the number we were aiming
no
for?
more. He's talked about it in the past.
No?
That's approximately our 10-year average, is somewhere in the 850 range. And you're correct, this is the one line you can statutorily exceed the budget with the vote. There's the fifth item in our annual budget vote is to allow that.
Okay.
And in order to be able to do that, you need to appropriate at least as much as you had originally in the prior year. So we're satisfying that by level funding this budget at $600,000 for this year. We're appropriating at least as much as the prior year.
Right. Okay. So I guess and understanding the entire budgetary picture is, as I said on Tuesday night, grave. We're not putting in any increase for snow and ice for this year. So we're kind of.
Well, given the year has done well, so we're just,
I understand this year was we did okay. We're still about 34% below what our actuals were for salt. But I just want to make sure that we're comfortable not for this year being static on that line and not growing it. So if that's the judgment, but I don't think we can't base a future snow year on a past snow year. I don't think realistically we can do that.
It's our best guesstimate.
Meteorology.
Sorry.
Okay, thank you. That answers my question.
Thank you, Madam President. I am good to go on this. No questions. The next category is Environmental Affairs and Waste Collection. Mr. Coons.
Yes.
Welcome, Mr. Coons. Good to see you.
Thank you. Good to be here.
Any statements, anything you'd like to make prior to questions?
I think probably relevant to state that we have transitioned and selected a new solid waste collection company, Capital Waste, and that contract will become effective July 1st. In addition to that, there have been several Department of Environmental Protection changes that took place in November of '22 that have impacted our budget, where additional material is being banned from the waste stream, not only in the towns, but also in the transfer station. So when curbside pickup takes place, we now have to segregate more products, which have changed the operation slightly, changed the cost of collection, and operationally, our responsibility to communicate that to the residents is an ongoing task. So those are the things that impacted our budget, and we can proceed to your questions. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. All right, Councilor Flaherty, any questions?
Thank you. I have some questions concerning the transfer station that, although I have emailed them in, and you may not have them yet, you may not, and that's okay. You can just, you can give me what you have tonight, if you will,
Sure.
and then whatever remains, you can just answer through email later. But I'd like for you to describe the tipping fee discount that Braintree gets, because these kinds of aspects of our arrangement with the transfer station, they're not identified as revenue exactly, but they do contribute significantly to the bottom line, and I would like to know more thoroughly how much they contribute.
Just kind of an overall summary of the operation. The contract that we have with Covanta CMAS, and we are in the 13th year of a 20-year contract extension. The facility itself takes money for every ton that is dumped there, and about 70% of the tons that go in there are commercial, and about 30% are residential. There are 5 basic communities that make up the residential part. And there's a sliding scale on the actual tonnage. So the first 5,000 tons, it's X amount per ton that is set aside for the town. And it averages about, if you looked at all of the tonnage that go in there, it averages about $5 a ton that go to the town. When I say go to the town, then I'll explain what happens to it. The agreement that I referred to also includes a discounted tip fee, the cost of the town of Braintree getting rid of its trash there. The average tip fee for that facility for residential trash is approximately $100 a ton. Commercial trash is about $180 a ton that goes in there. We pay approximately $25 a ton for the Braintree trash that goes in there. We never see, I mean, I see monthly bills, so I know what our tonnage is and what our costs are and so forth, but the money that comes in from all other tons that are dumped there, that $25 is subtracted so that we never see an actual charge into our budget for the tonnage that we send up there. And at the end of the year, there's a reconciliation. So typically there is extra money in that tonnage fund from all the other communities. And we receive, as a town, we receive a check on an annual basis. It averages about $550,000 There's some supplemental funds that come in for beautification on an annual basis, but that's basically how it works. So we never pay because there is money being banked for us by Covanta, and then we receive the residuals from that account. And I apologize if I thoroughly confused everyone.
Yeah,
but
so
it's
through the chair, I mean, given all of the benefits of it, it almost balances out along with the fee that everybody has to pay. So it actually pays for a good chunk of the overall cost of our trash removal, which is a great thing. You know, there's quite a bit of money that's generated from that because we get the huge savings from the, down to the $25 per load, and like you said, it's not paid for right away, it's paid at the end. Then we also get 2 checks. So between all of that, it's a significant amount of funds we get to pay for the program.
Would we get more money back if we disposed of less waste?
It would actually make more if others use more waste, because as the waste comes in, we actually get more revenue. As far as our waste, that's different. I don't know. Obviously, we'd have to pay for the waste somehow, right?
Well, there would be more money left at the end, through the chair, I'm sorry, but there'd be more money left at the end if we could reduce the amount of tonnage that we send up there. Now, I referred to the DEP changes that are taking place, and we're actually sending less tonnage up there now as a result of the construction demolition material that we're no longer, not only we, but they are no longer allowed to accept. Mattresses and box springs are another item that we're no longer sending to Covanta, so that will reduce our trash fee. But those are unfunded mandates that actually require us to pay money to somebody else to process it. So one hand washes the other. So we're paying a little bit less, but we're also investing that in other companies and other processes.
Where is this information available to residents? I mean, a tracking of, an accounting of the trash funds, so to speak.
It would be in the annual report, the annual
CAFR.
financial report.
In the CAFR, okay.
Yeah.
In the budget, I see that there is a reduction in the transportation costs, a 32.5% reduction. We don't ever see reductions, so I was curious if you could explain what accounts for that.
In the transport recycling?
Yes,
It just says transport
538006.
Yeah.
On theirs, it just says transport. That's all.
It just says
I'm sorry.
transport
Okay.
dash for
Very
us.
good. When the mattress and box spring mandate came out, we had no idea what the volume was going to be because there was no reason for us to track those items. We have negotiated our second contract for processing and collection, and we've actually been able to bring down the costs and also realistically understand how many we're collecting, and hopefully collecting only from Braintree residents and not people that would like to drop them off here. So, but we do not take any at the recycling center at all. It is all based on curbside collection. So we'll be able to implement additional controls as the program evolves.
Okay, so it's just, you made a guess at how many mattresses and so forth we would collect, and
Yes,
now we have a baseline of what to expect.
yes.
All right, those are my questions, thank you.
Good, thank you.
Thank you, Councilor. Councilor Maglio.
Thank you. So that was really helpful, that discussion, that description you just gave. And because I was under the impression, and this may still be accurate, but that our trash fees, which have not gone up in many years, I guess, are not actually offsetting our cost for trash. Would you agree or disagree with that statement?
They're not totally offsetting it, no, they're not, particularly with the new mandates.
With the
Right.
the new mandates, with curbside, with these other areas.
Correct.
So when was the last time it was discussed to raise the trash fee? Has it ever been?
Oh, yeah. The discussions we've had this year through the mayor's office have been that if we could manage those changes realistically and with other contract changes, that coming out of the COVID issues, the rising cost for all of the residents, the fuel cost increases, it was felt that if we could maintain the trash fee this year, actually last year and this year, that it would be a benefit to the residents without a tremendous impact on the financials.
So for next year, there will be no increase, but next year it might be discussed?
Yes, it will be discussed next year, because we'll have more realistic information on the mandates from DEP, and also a better understanding of what might be going on in the recycling processing areas. That's an unknown because it's a international impact number that comes back down through the towns.
Right. So what's really illuminating about this is that we know that there are some really great advantages for this transfer station, and we know that those advantages are largely financial because it is helping offset a bill. But there's also other pretty significant costs to having that there. There's the smell that happens a certain time every day. There's the businesses that are there that when I go to get my eyes checked at Harvard Vanguard or something, and you know the people at the various stores and everybody's walking around sort of waving. So there are definite environmental costs, and I'm wondering, I mean, I would be interested in seeing something like the trash fee, which would be a one-time cost, not an ongoing cost of heating fuel or gas in our cars or cost of food, but a one-time cost for residents, so that maybe more of that money we're getting from the trash transfer station could actually do more to curb that impact of that facility in terms of the ground, in terms of the air quality, things like that.
I think the steps that we have taken with the assistance of the health department, Covanta, and our operation, we've probably accomplished a significant impact in terms of odor, traffic control, and so forth. Trash is going to smell. There's nothing you can do about it. And about 50% of that problem are the vehicles themselves. It's not the transfer station.
Right.
It's the vehicles that bring the trash in or take it out. We have taken a lot of steps internally with Covanta in terms of odor mitigation, with plantings. We do track all major complaints. They are logged. They're logged through the health department as well as at Covanta themselves. They've got an environmental group that monitors those things and also do inspections to make sure that the controls we put in place are actually working the way they should. There's not a great deal more that can be done to mitigate that part of it. We are and we will continue to look at the alternatives that are available in that corridor. Several years ago, we did a request for information. We had 3 or 4 interesting results of that, people that were willing to develop there, both in spite of and along with Covanta. So that corridor still has some opportunity that could be explored. And we had a discussion on that in the last couple of weeks. You know, should we take those steps now, and when is the right time to do that? So the corridor will continue to be looked at, and hopefully I'll be able to stay involved in it. So.
Yeah.
Okay. Excuse me.
Excellent. Do we still have the people that go around and tag? Is that still a crew of seasonal workers? Okay.
Yes, it is. We have one full-time, part-time person, and then during the summer, we're going to increase that by 2 additional people. These will be normally students that will go out. And because of the change with DEP and the change of the company that's going to be collecting trash, we think that's an important part of what we do.
Sure. Excellent. Okay. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Councilor. Madam President, questions?
Thank you, Chairman Reynolds. I just want to go back to the cost because I'm a little bit lost. So on refuse collection, it's about, we're budgeting 2.5 million, is that correct?
Yes,
okay.
through the chair.
And then what does our town-wide annual trash fee equate to?
Our trash, excuse me.
If I may, I think there's an answer coming from
Through the chair, I believe it's in the neighborhood of 1.5 million, slightly over that, I think.
Okay, so we're $1 million short from what we're paying as residents to what our costs are. Is that correct? Or does that 2.5 exclude the $550,000 check we're getting?
Through the chair, the 2.5 is the collection cost.
Yep.
Has nothing to do with the disposal costs or our relationship with Covanta. That's a separate category of information, if I'm saying that right.
Okay,
So the 1.5, if we had to pay to get rid of our trash, it would be over $2 million a year. So
It
that
would be 2.5,
Yes.
right?
Yeah, it's
Is it-
about,
No, I believe he was saying if we had to pay $100 a ton and a
Right.
tipping fee to have the trash accepted somewhere else.
Yeah.
That would be an additional $2 million on
Right.
top of the $2.5 million budgeted today.
we still
Thank you,
have,
Mr.
excuse me,
Spellman.
through the chair, we still have to collect the trash. And
But even with the system we have today, the town is receiving $1.5 million roughly from trash fees that we pay annually.
yes,
yeah.
And it's costing us, even with the discount, $2.5 million.
no.
No, it's, if Covanta gives us revenue of about 800-something thousand, we get beautification for 100,000, we get 1.5 million in trash revenue, which is about 2.44 million. And then if you look at the total expense, it's about 2.8, so it's almost tangent with the cost. But, so the trash fee is helping, but beautification and revenue offsets are about $1 million we get from Covanta. So it's about 50% of the overall cost is being paid by the transfer station.
Can we get that, whatever detail you were looking at, Mr. Arsenal, can we get, if that's, I don't think that's in our books, but if it is, can someone tell me where it is so I need to.
I can get you the information, I don't have a problem with it, I have it right here. Yeah, I can get you some information, sure.
Well, we should have the actuals. Like, I know if you have them approximate, that's fine for tonight, but we should have the actuals. What I'm trying to understand is because to Councilor Maglio's point, there is a presumption that the cost, that our trash fee does not cover our costs. And it's,
You know,
I'm struggling to figure out if that is accurate.
It doesn't. That 1.5 million is not enough. It's 2.5 million total is the cost. So it's only 1.5 million that's paid for. That pays a portion of it. With Covanta there, it pays the extra $1 million. So that's where we do kind of have balance with Covanta. If
So
Covanta was gone, then we would be out of balance by over $1 million, about $1 million.
So the 2.5 is the absolute cost, and we're
I mean,
getting
it's-
basically a rebate.
It's a little bit
from-
higher right now. It's like 2.8, but it fluctuates depending on the year.
Okay, but we're getting basically like a rebate from Covanta.
Yes.
Can you please itemize what that looks like, how it comes in, and if it is allocated to the general fund or if it is allocated to like tree maintenance in front of Covanta? My concern is that we're subsidizing trash. And for lots of reasons, I'm concerned about that, right? It's bad for the environment. We could use $1 million to fund full-day kindergarten. And I'm trying to I want to get the facts so that I have them. And we are looking accurately at the benefits and the pitfalls of having giant trash barrels for which we are, it sounds like, underpaying. Braintree is one of the highest throwaway towns in the state. And so my follow-up, so if you can get us that would be a huge help, thank you. My follow-up question, if I may, Mr. Chair. Have we ever looked at a pay-as-you-throw trash model, which I know other communities do, but I don't know if that, what I'm trying to understand is if that is for more suburban or smaller towns that have their own, like, landfill, or are we beholden to sidewalk pickup, or can we do pay-as-you-throw with sidewalk pickup?
It has been, through the chair, it's been several years since we looked at pay-as-you-throw, but we did an analysis. In fact, there were 3 communities involved, Quincy, Weymouth, and ourselves. And in conjunction with DEP, we did an analysis on pay-as-you-throw. And all 3 communities made the decision, financially and operationally, that it was a benefit to go with the CART program. And pay-as-you-throw has not actually expanded in the state. The CART program is really more expansive. Now, there is a combination of carts and pay-as-you-throw, so you restrict the amount of trash that can be put out there. We have not looked at that in total for probably about 4 years, but it's evolving, and so instead of a 64-gallon cart, as we have for trash, they use a 35-gallon cart for trash, which means you can get about 3 little bags in your cart, and then you purchase bags for the additional part. So things get lost in every community because we all do it differently. The trash fee, we've got an extremely low trash fee. Trash fees, on average in the state, are approaching $300 as opposed to ours, which is about half of that. So if we wanted to increase the fees to the residents, which a pay-as-you-throw program does, it is an alternative. But we've made a multi-million-dollar investment in carts, and to change that now would be, the payback just isn't going to be there yet.
Mr. Chair, may I ask a follow-up question? When did we make that investment in the carts? How old are those carts?
The carts are 9 years old.
Okay, so I mean, for whatever it's worth, I think we would be well served for, again, both financially and environmentally, to at least assess a pay-as-you-throw trash model. The limited research I've done is that the communities that have pay-as-you-throw, their trash has reduced exponentially, because you have to really think about the waste that you're creating, and think about the cost, to both the monetary and environmental cost of that waste. And if the Covanta contract would be beneficial to us if we threw out less trash, that is yet another reason to assess that. So I'll leave it at that, and I appreciate your time.
Thank you, Madam
Thank you.
President. That was very, thank you for sharing that perspective. I appreciated that. I've had some pretty strong opinions on trash through the years about what to do. I would agree that we have an incredibly cheap trash pickup fee in our town. For less than the cost of a cup of coffee, in a week, for 1 week, we have our trash picked up and our recycle picked up and carted away. For less than the cost of a cup of coffee a week. So I think there's ample opportunity for us to increase the trash pickup fees, but there's not a political will to this point to do so. And it would be significant. It would not be any kind of significant impact to a household in cost to do so, even if it was just increased by $25, which would give us a pretty good amount of money to add on top of our costs. Where where we are. I know the trash and recycle world has evolved and changed so much, and Mr. Coons, you've been right through there all the way from when it was a cash cow for a town to have recycle programs, to the point where it became a significant cost center for the town to have to pay for recycle pickup. And that really opened up the floodgates. So my understanding, that I try to keep it very simple, is that we pay for the trash to be picked up from front of our house, and then it's brought somewhere else for disposal. And it's that disposal process that the town of Braintree has taken on years and years ago with an incinerator, and then the incinerator shut down and then became a transfer station. And the discounted tipping fees, we have a discount tipping fee, if I'm my understanding, not that it's waived, but it's just a discount. And, you know, so I think there's some really good arguments to be made, or for good conversation pieces around the pros and cons of how we're funding our trash presently. So I don't have anything further on that point. I would look forward, though, to that addendum of kind of further explanations on how that net $25 per ton stipend paid to the town works, and how it offsets what our costs are of 75% of the total cost for a ton tipping fee, and how we make up that difference. So that would be very interesting. And I know for a fact that a lot of those beautification funds have come in very handy in numerous beneficial ways for the town. So it's not a very straightforward, black and white, if you will, conversation to have. So, and I know, Mr. Coons, you've been on the forefront of it and have managed it very well through the years. So as a resident, thank you.
But through the chair, if I may,
Yes.
I think it's a combination of what you spoke to and what the president spoke to. And I think that, we'll continue to look at those options and opportunities along with DEP and also along with the South Shore Recycling Cooperative, of which you're a member, who also does these analysis for several communities on the South Shore. So we'll continue that. And
I would look forward to that. That sounds great. Thank you. All right. That is all that I have for environmental affairs and waste collection. So thank you, Mr. Coons.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Next up is the cemetery. Who will be handling that for you?
Ben?
Okay. And are there any questions from Council Flaherty?
All right, no, Ben, over there.
I only have one question related to cemetery, and that is, I see the first three items there, the labor and custodian, the foreman, part-time employee. These are increases, and I'm just curious if that is a result of the cemetery expansion that we have authorized.
Not really part of the expansion. There will be obviously additional areas that need to be maintained. Some of that is reflected in the line down below, grave supplies, just a larger area for maintenance and everything else. So try to increase that budget a little bit to account as these new plots come up and become running. A lot of the increases, part-time employee just trying to come back out of COVID and trying to get with the summer help positions, student laborers, and some of that's also driven by increased minimum wage.
Okay, thank you. That's all.
Thank you. Council Maglio?
I have no questions.
Thank you. Madam President?
No questions, thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. And just one question I have is just the overtime increase. Could you just give us an explanation what that's attributed to, or what's the forecast, drivers?
Just trying to kind of get that in line with our actuals, 2022 actuals at like 17.5, 2023 actuals at, almost 16. So just trying to actually, request an accurate figure.
Excellent. Okay. So I would say that 18% overall increase really is driven by the grave supplies, the majority of that.
Primarily, yes.
Okay. Thank you. That's all that I had for that question. Moving then on to Town Hall maintenance. Are there any questions from the councilors?
I just have
Yes, Council Flaherty.
one question. Why is it that we only do this historical comparison for Town Hall and not in any of our other town buildings?
This is the way it's always been funded, and I don't know, we haven't made a change to it, to be honest with you. It's relative to the town hall, and so all the expenses are for the town hall, so. But it's the way it was set up originally, and we just haven't changed it.
I believe it probably goes back to at one point in time, that account was managed by either it wasn't a chief of staff at the time, but managed by the town hall individually, as opposed to now kind of everything falling under the facilities.
I mean, something we could think about in the future and see if we want to wrap it into the general facilities, but we just never changed it. It's been that way for a long time.
But I believe it might have been under the old form of government, the building maintenance costs might have been under the selectman's office. And the program just stayed and was converted over with the new form of government under the mayor. It was put under the Board of Selectmen back when in 2008, or 2009, when the first fiscal year budget for the old mayor was put together. But I can check, that was prior to, that was the last budget before me.
I mean, just some insight that I might be able to provide on that to the question of Councilor Flaherty. And as the Director Houck had mentioned, as a chief of staff, it was something that the mayor would always emphasize, this is the people's house. And that this was the central location for the community to come together, and that it should be represented as such, as a place that would not have to compete, if you will, with other town buildings because of just the diversity of use of this building and the diversity of people and residents and committees and whatnot who utilize this building as this is our best foot forward as a community.
I would never dispute the importance of Town Hall, but what I would comment on is this. When you identify the particular needs of a building and you say year over year, this building needs this, we gave it this much last year, how much are we going to give it this year? Then what you do, the net result of that is that building gets those attentions. And many of our buildings in this town have gone without that kind of attention for a long time. And while Town Hall is certainly important, I think all of our buildings are that important. And I don't really object to having Town Hall continue to be identified this way in the budget, but I think that our attentions are gravely needed elsewhere. And perhaps if this is what's needed for us to be able to apply that attention, then perhaps each school building should be pulled out, and all of the other buildings that are important to us, like the fire hall, which is going to get some renovation attention, and the police department, which needs attention. A budget is a statement of your priorities. Is this our only priority? Because mapping it out this way kind of makes it look like it is. That's all.
Thank you, Councilor. Are there any other comments from the committee? Very good. Thank you. Okay, moving on. Next up is recreation and community events. Welcome, Mr. Griffin.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman.
How are you?
Very well, sir. Thank you.
Excellent. Now, do you have any comments, opening statement?
If I could, Mr. Chairman, just through you to the committee, obviously thank you for the opportunity to be in front of you this evening. I'm looking forward to answering any questions and talking about our programs and what we offer the community. It's a daily labor of love. We enjoy the work we do. We are my predecessor, well, our friend Nelson always used to say, we're the fun department, with the recreation department, and we're here to provide only the best recreational opportunities for the members of our community, whatever, whether it be sports or art or camps. We are here for our community, and I'm very happy to be with you tonight.
Thank you. We appreciate that. So I'd like to ask Council Flaherty to open up if she has any questions.
Where is your programming budget?
The programming budget. So to begin with, we do have a community events line item, which we use to run out of the events we have during the summer, our parties in the park, our events we have out here at the town hall. We do receive about $10,000 a year from our friends at BELD to support our summer concert series. And we do, when you refer to the non-employee salary, non-employee salary needs for, like, say, our camps or our programs, those come out of revenue that is generated from the fees that people pay to use the camps. For example, like the money that somebody, when they sign up for field trip camp, the money that is then paid out through that to the different locations they go is paid through by the revenue brought in by that, when the parents sign them up for that camp.
Okay.
It's in the revenue revolving account.
Okay. In the back, on page 80, it talks about DPW summer programs. Is that related to recreation, or is that a different thing?
It is, yes. Yeah.
So it looks like we're reducing that by 13%. What's driving that reduction?
It was when we looked at our actuals from this past year, where we were able to, we believe we provided the community with a great summer last year. These don't obviously take effect until July 1st. Any programming and activities we have up until June 30th, which this year includes the first week of camp, is still paid for by this current year's fiscal budget. So in looking at last year's actuals, we determined that we can provide a great summer for our residents at that level. Looking ahead at the calendar for next year of where the programs will fall on the calendar, both before and after July 1st of 2024, we were able to make a determination about how much we would need.
Okay, so I get that the fiscal year splits right in the middle of your busiest time, but a 13% reduction is not insubstantial for a program that runs on a shoestring budget. What are you going to be doing less of?
I don't think there's anything less of. Just looking at the actuals that came in for FY23, I think we will be in a position to provide exactly what we provided last summer, this summer, based on the actuals from this past fiscal year.
I see. So you're not going to reduce anything. It's just that your actuals are so robust that you can charge the town less instead of doing more.
Correct.
Yeah, through the chair. So when we came to we started looking at the budget around January, February, or somewhere in that range, we started looking at what projections were, and we did have some funds that we were able to cut. So in this budget, we just changed, decreased the funding a little bit, given that everybody's trying to save funding the best we can. And the funding was there in remaining, and we didn't feel that it would hurt the overall program. So,
my children have benefited greatly from Braintree recreational programs, but they have benefited just as greatly from Weymouth recreational programs, which are considerably more robust. And I'm grateful that that our kids are able to take advantage of opportunities elsewhere, but I am saddened to know that instead of just increasing our offerings, we're making these cuts. And I understand that we have to make very hard choices in this, but I think that it should be acknowledged that that is one of them. Those are my questions. Thank you.
Understood.
Thank you, Counselor. Counselor Maglio.
Thank you. So I have a couple of questions that I'd like to ask you. The first is, are you the acting director or the director?
Acting, interim, as the committee well knows, our friend Nelson, we lost him in December of 2020. I had been his assistant director for just under 2 years, and the position hadn't been fully budgeted the last 2 fiscal years. And I, with the support of obviously Jim and Ben and a lot of the people in this room, as well as the administration, we have been carrying on, giving the daily effort without our friend Nelson. But yes, my official, I think in my email signature line it says acting coordinator of recreation and community events.
Okay, acting coordinator. So then, do you have an assistant coordinator?
I do not. I was that until we lost Nelson. So I'm still paid out of the assistant line, if you will.
Okay. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
The two items, 08 and 03 and 04, the July 4th festival maybe, and then the July 4th parade? Is that what those two are?
Yes.
Okay. All right.
July 4th festivities.
Festivities. Okay.
Yep.
Okay, great. I know how excited people get when the registration opens up, because you can see the talk online about people saying, I hear they're going to open it up at midnight, I'm getting ready, I'm going to have my web page, and I'm going to press it, and because people want to get their kids in and they want to get their plans made. So I actually was going to have a similar comment to Councilor Flaherty's, which is this is another area where for very short funding, we can do a lot. You really can do a lot.
Thank you.
We're not doing it. You're doing it. And so the idea that we're cutting things like we've run our budget, we've run our actual so close to budget that we can shave money off. Actually, how nice would it be if there could be one more part-timer and 5 more kids can sign up, or one more week?
Certainly. First of all, thank you for bringing up our summer programs. That is a great point of pride for us. Well, I hate to say pride. I shouldn't be braggadocious, but we are very happy to run those programs every year. You're right; they are popular. Is sign up at midnight. I'm very glad to say, people can now do that online at midnight. I still remember many years ago, me and my mom riding over to the post office at midnight to make sure that the envelope went in to be postmarked on the day. So we're getting better. People still ask, why is it at midnight? I'm like, at least you can do it from home. So certainly, we did take steps this year to ensure that more children could be in these programs. We have fully restored all of our programs that we were offering pre-COVID. We are completely at a pre-COVID 2019 level. We also took steps this year. The field trip camp, we have informed people that they've signed up for just 1 week, which we've done for many years. This year, in order to ensure more kids had the opportunities, we did return to limiting the weeks that people can sign up for camp. We have a 6-week program. We did go down to 3 weeks just to make sure that, people didn't log in at midnight and take up all 6 weeks. That sort of thing. So that proved to be very popular. That's a return to how things were done. I think when I was a kid, you were limited to 2 weeks. So we're still ahead of the late 90s. Certainly, as Jim indicated earlier, I don't think there's any person in my role in the in the Commonwealth or anywhere in the country who, wouldn't say, yeah, I could do more with more. But we are very happy to provide these programs every year to the residents of Braintree. We look forward to them starting, and it is great.
Do you do a head count? Do you have a set of metrics that you work with? Like, this is the amount of traffic we have at most of our parks, or this is the amount of enrollment that we have for our programs year-round?
Oh, yes. No, I know you mentioned the park playground program that we offer during the summer, the free drop-in program. We make adjustments. We review at the end of every year. Our summer directors, they're constantly getting a head count almost daily of who's using what parks. And we're able to, at the end of the summer, or even sometimes, midsummer, if one park is showing, an incredible amount of students and, another one is kind of lagging behind, we can make adjustments midsummer. That's not done always. It's more, between the summers that we analyze, where our resources can best be. I will note, last year, for the first year, since I went there many years ago when I grew up on Blanchard Boulevard, we opened up Perry Park right near Burroughs Road for the first time in many years, and we were very pleased. There's a lot of young families in that neighborhood. Councilor Reynolds, from your district over to Councilor Maglio's your district, I'd say from Church Street to Commercial Street, there are hundreds of children in that neighborhood that can get to that park without crossing a main road. So that's what we aim for. So we were very pleased with the response to reopening that park after many years.
So do you have a number at the end of the year that you look at?
Yes, our summer director prepares me a report at the end of, and before me, they would prepare for Nelson at the end of every year, briefing, me on how they, with bar graphs and such, as far as, how many they saw at each park. And, go ahead.
Is that data that you could share with us?
I could find that last year's report for you, absolutely, yep.
And sort of the year-to-year comparison?
Sure, yeah.
Thank you. And then is there a piece in here, or is this capital, where it has to do with ADA issues? Because I know that there was a supplemental, and I know that it goes in, there's capital funds for that. Is there any tie into your actual budget that deals with that kind of an issue?
So the ADA improvements are mostly all sought through capital.
Okay.
We did just, over the past couple of weeks, when we were very grateful for the council to approving that report, we do make a yearly investment, capital-wise, in ADA improvements.
Okay. And the amount of year-round staff that you have, what is that?
So for recreation, for my department, it is myself and currently I split, I know Mr. Brown from the golf course mentioned last night, he and I, we share an administrative person who's responsible for the bill paying and payroll for both recreation as well as golf. And obviously, we do bring on quite a bit more in the summer, not just those who work in our camps, but those who are our lifeguards and those who attend the gates at, say, Sunset Lake. So we do, our timesheets do get a bit bigger in the summer. We're happy to provide employment for upwards of 50 to 60 young Braintree residents who are between the ages of 16 and then into their, if they stay with us for a couple of years, into their college years as well.
Okay, so there's one full-time person year-round, and that's you?
In recreation, yes, that's me.
Okay. Versus parks?
Versus grounds?
No, parks, because you're Parks and Rec.
Parks and Recreation.
But you're saying it's just in rec? Is there some, but it's one whole department?
Technically, the name of my department is Recreation and Community Events, and
Okay.
that's
So
me.
one full-time person. I just want to really understand that.
Yes.
One full-time person.
Yeah, that's currently.
Yes.
So
In the
more than likely, with the proposed budget, there would be then two, because the Melson's position would be funded, and then there would be a split between Parks and Rec. I think you heard before, remember when we talked to Darren about it, how the position we're going to be looking at having either a part-time or full-time with the golf, and on the recreation side, it would be a full-time position as well.
Okay, so the admin is split with golf,
Yeah.
and then another person would come on and also be split with golf?
Yeah, no, there's one person that's split with golf, because
Okay.
right now there's one office assistant, or I don't
Right.
know the exact terminology, but the
admin.
clerical person.
Yep.
And so that person is split between golf and recreation department.
Okay.
And so in the budget, there'll be one golf position, however Darren wants to arrange it, and then there would be a position within the recreation department as well.
Separate from that admin?
Yeah.
And that would be part-time or full-time?
So that would be a full-time position in each, possibly. Like I said, golf may try another avenue. They're looking at different options, but
I'm not understanding.
Yes. Currently, there's 2.5 in the, 0.5 in the golf and a 0.5
Right,
in Park and Rec.
okay.
Both budgets are proposing increases, which would take the 0.5 of each and make it a 1.0 in golf and a 1.0 in rec.
yeah.
So it would go from
Thank you.
1.5 to 2 in rec.
Gotcha, okay. So then two, would that be an admin role, or would that be more of a hands-on, do-what-you-do kind of
Well,
role?
that change from part-time to full is a clerical position.
Okay. So that would still just be you as the director of, or the acting RICS and events coordinator doing all of those activities?
Well, in addition to that, Nelson's old position would be fully funded. So he would be, depending on who got selected, because it has to go through a process, and that person would be, that main position would be funded.
So that would be a third?
So it'd be 3 altogether.
Okay, so now, okay, so we'll have, so looking ahead, and in this budget,
Yes,
it will be 3 people.
yes.
Okay. Well, that sounds like it could be welcome support for you.
Yeah, and Council, if I could, provide just a little context. I started. I was fortunate enough to be chosen to work with Nelson back in February of 2019. I had the opportunity, as I said, just under 2 years to work with him. Our department does have a lot of responsibilities, and ones we carry out. We coordinate, with the grounds division as far as preparing, fields and everything. So yeah, absolutely.
I'm happy to hear this.
Oh, thank you, Councilor. Thank
you.
you.
I'm
Thank you.
happy to hear it, and
Yeah.
I'm thinking that is going to
absolutely.
actually really pay off.
Well, thank you.
For
Thank you.
the people,
Yeah.
for the residents, and for you to be able to continue
Thank you.
growing your programs, and that could be,
Glad to.
so that also makes me wonder how we could cut it, but, I mean, why it is cut, why it's down, why certain numbers are down, but that's okay. I don't need to know. I'm just glad to hear that.
We're still going to have a concert at Smith Beach in August, believe me.
Well, that is good.
We'll have to have you call the raffle numbers
But
again
maybe
this
you
year.
could do some veggie dogs instead of those hot dogs.
We can certainly look into that.
Okay, all right.
Yep.
Very
We
good,
did
thank
have
you.
veggie burgers at Cleanup Day a couple years ago.
You
There's
had a couple years
yeah.
ago.
Oh, excuse me, a couple weeks ago.
had it
I mean,
a
a
couple
couple,
weeks
couple
ago,
weeks
yeah.
ago.
All right. Well, I don't know
Cleanup
if
Day.
The chairman and I have a friend we used to work with who always asked for veggie burgers.
All right, thank you very much. I'm all set, thanks.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Madam President.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Mr. Griffin, for being here tonight. I have a few follow-up questions. So one line item I do not see here, and I was under the impression that was going to change this year, is for the Braintree Community Arts Center, which right now has $0 allocated to it. Is that being adjusted?
I'll maybe let the finance director speak to that. I will say, from where I sit, it's similar to our, programs we run. Obviously, we do, when we run a program at the Arts Center, usually it's a class of some sort. There's a fee associated with it.
So those fees, that my understanding that there was going to be a revolving fund established for those fees, which currently don't really cover the cost of the classes and or the teachers, and that we were going to have a small, and Braintree Day, July 4th, is a fabulous day. $40,000 for that one day. We have $0 allocated for a year-round community arts center. So I'm hoping that that is going to be, there's going to be some shifts. If we're taking $30,000 out of summer programming, we're $40,000 allocated to Braintree Day. We have nothing for the Arts Center. So
Well-
I'm concerned about our overall portfolio of providing a broad-based activity program for kids and adults, because the Arts Center serves our entire population year-round. So that might not be able to be answered tonight, but
Through the chair. So we do provide funding for, the maintenance of the buildings and the electrical and the water and sewer and all that is paid for by the general fund, by the fund. And then also we get some revenues from activities that are going on. I understand there could be more funding in the future, but at this time, that's all that's in the operating that I'm aware of. We can investigate and see if there's anything.
yes, please.
Okay.
Because my understanding is that the fees that are being charged today don't cover the cost to pay for the instructors, and that individuals who are working at the Art Center are paying for their own supplies. And the Art Center is a hidden gem in our community. And if we're not allocating any funding to it, I'm going to go back to what Councilor Flaherty said. What does that say about our priorities? So that is one question, and yes, please, I would like to understand where that is. We have not funded a department head for over 2.5 years, and that's $93,000. Is that job posted?
No.
It hasn't been funded
No,
yet.
hasn't been funded yet.
It has been, there's been, okay, so is the job posted, will it be posted on July 1st or July 2nd? Are we planning to hire for that, or is that money that we can allocate elsewhere?
No, we were planning on funding that position, yes.
Okay, so if you can get back to me on the revolving fund and the funding for the Art Center, that would be great. My next question is, I know that we have some constraints on who can who can use some of our facilities in town. So the splash pad and the parking lot at Sunset Lake are resident only. Have we considered offering the purchase of a parking sticker for people who don't live in Braintree but would like to use, drive and enjoy Sunset Lake, or drive and enjoy the splash pad? I know that a lot of towns that have beaches, one way that they help with the maintenance of those beaches is by charging non-residents for permits, basically. You're basically buying a beach permit. So I'm asking, have we considered a parking sticker or a permit, however you want to look at it, for using the splash pad in Sunset Lake? Those are the only two I'm aware of in town that require a resident sticker.
And through to the chair, there's never been, in my knowledge, any sort of formal discussion about that. Just to provide a little background, the issue with the splash pad, as far as being residents only, that is actually in response not to the pad itself, but over many years, concerns expressed regarding parking on Gordon Road and areas around there. Obviously, like on days when there's baseball games and East Braintree Little League plays down there, they have a great number of volunteers, as well as email lists and such that can direct people to appropriately park. We tried over the years, many different ways to, direct people to, say, Smith Beach to park, but we'd have school buses arrive from out of town at the splash pad, and it was becoming, we were getting multiple daily calls from the streets around there. Yeah. So the issue with the splash pad was in response to a great number of parking concerns expressed by the neighborhood.
Understood. And that's why I think it might be worthwhile to think about what the capacity is, if this is a way that we can help offset some of the fees or some of the costs that we incur because we have to maintain it, staff it. Same with the lake. You can take it or leave it, but it's my recommendation that it should at least be, it should be looked at, because we are in a serious money problem, money crunch here. So I think that we should have all options on the table. And as I was looking through the rec budget, that came to mind as a possibility. So I offer that up. I'm through. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Madam President. Great comments there. Okay. Just very quickly, most of my questions have been answered. I'm just curious why is the assistant department head's salary being decreased by 2%? I'll ask that to the director. Right.
I don't think it's in response to reducing the pay. I think it's just that it probably is an adjustment to last year's budget. That's all I can think of.
Is there anything from the, that doesn't, yeah.
Oh yeah, because he's currently being paid out of grade, so it's a different pay range. So,
all right, actually, if I could, it looks like the finance director was going to provide some clarity.
Fiscal '24, the budget is for 52 weeks even. For fiscal '23, we asked departments, they budgeted 52.2, so there was an extra day. So that if the step and grade were the same, you would see a slight decrease from 23's 52.2 to 24's.
So it actually, all right, so it's a duration?
We budget the actual days for the general fund budget and for fiscal 24.
So the person's salary isn't necessarily decreased?
No.
It's just it's stretched out.
This
year compared to the current fiscal year, you ended up having to pay an extra day.
An extra day in fiscal '23.
You don't have that extra day in fiscal '24.
No.
And does that also apply to any other, does it apply to anybody else? I haven't seen this kind of a decrease in any other area so far. You can get back to me on that one.
Yep.
Okay? Thank you. I'm just out of curiosity. That's all that I had for this. And Councilor Maglio, you had a follow-up question.
Yes, it's that old parking can of worms.
Yeah.
I can't hear it without actually jumping in to say something.
Go ahead.
So I think what we've talked about and what we need to see in the budget is to actually put the plan in place to get people to park at Smith Beach. That's the first thing, to pay for the signs, to do all that kind of thing, to kind of usher people over there. Also, your very good idea, President Berica, about stickers and parking passes, that's a fantastic idea. And what that would require is a little bit of traffic enforcement, which I think was part of what contributed to the fact that there were school buses coming in and all kinds of camp programs coming in and nobody paying any sort of fee to do that. And I think that ended up becoming a real drain on the community that had to deal with the cars and the buses and then the trash cans and the people complaining. And I think it's really unfortunate because I think there's people that are right there in Quincy, right there in Braintree, that are part of our community, that shop in our stores, that go to our restaurants, that help us fight against the toxins in the Fore River Basin, and that they should, if they're swinging on the swings and their kids want to get wet in the splash pad, they shouldn't be carted by a 17-year-old and not allowed to use it. So I just, I keep singing that, that same tune because I know that you agree, I know that there's, there's all kinds of support for that, but I don't know what it takes to make that happen. So it looks like you might want to jump in and respond to that. So please.
Yes, certainly, and I know you and I and you see Andrew Berman from East Braintree Little League, we've had discussions about the parking. The advantage they have, obviously, we've discussed signage and such, and I think that's a good idea, particularly to put up, and that's something we are going to look into doing. The difference being with, the say when there's baseball down there, when everything on a Saturday morning is just crazy down there with East Braintree Little League. They obviously have the ability to, have several volunteers who, responsibility is directing people to appropriate parking. They can, as part of their sign-up process, they can make the parents aware that, the parking situation. If somebody's, not very familiar with the area, maybe coming from out of town, they may not, they may not be familiar with parking there, and obviously, signage helps. I will say, for several years after the splash pad opened, we stationed. There was at least one or two summer employees who their role was to sit at the top of Gordon Road there, where the entrance to the parking lot for the Little League is, and direct people to Smith Beach. And I'm sorry to say, that wasn't a success because that was something we tried some time ago for several years, but sometimes people just didn't want to hear it, unfortunately, and so it wasn't a success. But as I said, I certainly take under advisement, what the council has said tonight. I appreciate it. It's a conversation worth having, and it's one I look forward to having. So.
Conversation a lot. It's a public street, it's a public park, it's a public beach, it's a public parking lot, it's all free.
Yep.
And the only thing that people aren't allowed to use is that splash pad. And the use of it went way down during COVID because it wasn't even open for a while.
It wasn't open just for 2020.
2020?
Yeah.
Okay. And then 2021 it was open, but that's when there was a limitation on who could use it.
Correct.
And I know that the people that live right there have a lot of challenges, but I also think that those are challenges that can be addressed with a little bit of planning, very little money, and just a little bit of enforcement and follow-up.
Sure.
And I know that that's something that it's not your immediate call. I get that. I understand that. But it's the same conversation that I've been having with town halls since before I became a counselor. And I'd really love to see some better signs this year. I'd really love to see some enforcement so people aren't trapped in their driveways. But anyway, okay.
Thank you, Council.
Thank you.
Thank you, Counselor. Okay, so I just want to note the time this evening. I know that we were scheduled roughly through 8 o'clock. It's now almost touching 9:30. I appreciate everybody who here has been waiting through for their turn. And I guess as our reputation precedes us, we are a diligent crew, and we like to ask a lot of questions. And we appreciate your patience. We appreciate your diligence in responding to our questions. With that said, I'm going to make some changes here to our schedule. The DPW, what I'm going to propose is that the DPW School Custodial Services, School Maintenance Division, and School Utility, move that to the evening of 5/17. That is the night that we will have education, the school department, with us. This is, again, just for the sake of time. We still have the Water and Sewer Department to look at, and I do believe what, other than that, is grounds maintenance. And is there anything, Director Arsenault, that other than water and sewer, grounds maintenance, stormwater, anything else?
That's it, the 3 utilities, and then grounds maintenance would be the only ones left after.
Okay.
Take the 2 schools out.
Water, sewer, and stormwater. Okay. Go right ahead, Councilor Maglio has a question.
Is there anybody that's been here waiting all night that would have to come back?
I think the only one right now is based on that would probably be Mr. McGurty, where those are more facilities
Yes,
related.
McGurty would have to come back, yes.
Right. My apologies to Mr. McGurty. I know he's grumbling under his voice at me, that son of a gun. That's right.
He enjoys meeting you all, so I'm
Yes,
sure
he
it's
does.
Oh, why wouldn't he? Okay.
He does a great job, so, okay. Do we have any problem with that proposal from anyone in the committee? Very good. Thank you. So let's get to it. The next is the grounds maintenance, DPW, and I'll ask if there's any questions from Councilor Flaherty.
Let them go.
Questions from Councilor Flaherty?
Are there any questions from Councilor Maglio?
No.
Okay. How about the council president?
Nope.
Okay, and I'll just note, looks at a lot of these costs seem to be supply related. So there
Correct.
really isn't anything there of note for us to take a look at.
No,
Terrific.
correct.
Okay, thank you very much. Next, we will move on to, let's see, the tab is water and sewer, G. Thank you. Is there a comment from the councilor?
I do have a question concerning the Braintree Weymouth Recreation. This is the fund that we use to allocate money to Pond Meadow.
Yes,
So I note that it's up 55%.
yep.
I have to say, I think that's great, but I'm surprised to see it. So can you just account
Sure.
for that?
To the chair.
Yes.
Sorry. So they have, there's a culvert that's on the Braintree Recreation area, and it's, needs a lot of mitigation. There's a lot of sediment and stuff like that that has to be taken out of it. The EPA is kind of putting the hammer down on it to clean that up. And so they, a big chunk of the cost is from that. And they also, I believe, have a additional position that's coming in. So between the 2 of those elements, it did increase the cost significantly
Okay, so
for this fiscal year, this coming fiscal year.
the DEP is requiring some kind of mitigation in the culvert?
Yes, there was
And
a
then
lot of
there-
sediment buildup, and it's
Okay.
causing some issues, and they
And
want...
also there's a new hire?
Yes.
Okay.
Position.
So Pond Meadow Park is this wonderful, wonderful resource in Braintree that people of all ages and abilities are able to use. And I have noted recently that it is struggling, not so much with facilities, but with invasives. And they are not able, considering the equipment that they have, they're not able to effectively contend with the invasives. And it has a considerable impact on the local ecosystem. And it's quiet, and it's not necessarily unattractive looking, but it's very, very bad for the environment. And you can have volunteers come to try and eradicate or to put a dent in some of these invasive plants, things like garlic mustard and multiflora rose and the milfoil that grows in the pond. These things crowd out what's supposed to be there, which impacts the natural wildlife at the bottom of the food chain, which has an impact at the top of the food chain. And it's a problem not just in Pond Meadow, but all over Massachusetts and all over America and probably the world, as I'm sure you're well aware. But we have a responsibility to steward our piece of the world, I think, better than we're doing, and Pond Meadow can't do it unless we allocate the equipment that they need to be able to do it and the manpower that they need to be able to do it. You can hire goats, you can have goat power, but goats are $1,000 a week. They will eat your multifloral rose for you. But you have to pay for the goats, and the multifloral rose grows back. So you have to keep paying for the goats. Anyway, that is my big pitch for Pond Meadow Park. I really don't want to see it deteriorate, and I'm concerned about it. So I'm glad to know that we're hiring somebody for that. That's all.
Thank you.
Everybody has their soapbox, that's mine.
All right, that was excellent. Now, I just want to give an opportunity to any other committee members and the, Madam President, any comment? Thank you, appreciate that, and thank you for bringing that up. I overlooked that. All right, moving on to G, tab G. So, Mr. Dutton.
There you go.
Did I wake you? Geez, I thought, was that a flashback to being back in school?
I know.
After a late night gig, right?
Yeah.
Okay, all right. So I want to ask, so we've all had an opportunity to walk through all of your tab here. And I want to give an opportunity to each of the counselors and to have to ask a question that would pertain to anything that's existing in tab G as in golf, other than going through each individual section. Are we okay with that?
Sure.
So before we do that, do you have any opening statement?
No, I just look forward to answering any questions that you may have.
Thank you.
I
Appreciate
also,
it.
through
Yes.
the chair, if you don't mind,
Director
I just
Arsenault.
wanted to let you know that the overall cost of the MWA went significantly down this year, so I don't know why, but it's a positive thing. So
That's a 4% decrease? Is that one of the items that we saw?
it's actually, since then, they do another estimate, and it's better than it is, that's all I'll say.
Well, that is a good story.
So that's all I'll say, but it's has
All
been an
right,
increase.
well, that's a good story. Maybe you can follow back up with us and give us a anticipated dollar amount in savings. Terrific. All right, so Councilor Flaherty, do you have any questions regarding the water and sewer budget?
I have some, but for the sake of those who are here waiting, here's my take on this. Our general fund operating budget is under so much strain that we have to go through it line by line almost and ask about the tires and tubes and every other minor thing that changes. But our enterprise funds, which are not dependent on taxpayer revenue, but rather on ratepayer contributions, those are far more robust and far healthier. And as a consequence, it's a lot easier to review the budget. So I only have some questions on some of these pages, and it usually is it's always associated with some kind of increase, because the ratepayers have to, we owe it to the ratepayers to ensure that the money that they're paying into the program that they pay for is being used wisely. Sure. So with that, on page 4 of tab G, we have system REH, which is up 546%. And I am curious what that is and why we have an increase.
Sure.
Yes, so what that is through the chair. We have 13 pumping stations, sewer pumping stations, which have 2 pumps apiece. Some stations have also grinders in them. They're at the point now where they start to fail, so we have to purchase new pumps right away. They can range anywhere from the smaller stations to around 12,000 up to the bigger stations, which could go about 55,000 apiece. So to plan these in a capital aspect is very difficult because you never know when these are going to fail. So we'd like to have the money in the budget to be able to just replace these when we need to.
Oh, so you don't anticipate replacing all the pumps all at one time. You just want to fill the bucket so that you can replace them when you need to.
Correct.
Yeah.
How nice. That's great. Let's move on. Page 9. There's a reserve fund. I think it's wonderful that you have a reserve fund. Can you characterize it for us?
Yeah, that reserve fund, if we have any type of shortages in any of our lines, we can use that money to balance those lines.
Like all lines everywhere throughout the water and sewer?
Correct.
Yeah.
Okay. Page 14. Equipment repair and filter plant.
Yeah, those line items are to keep the current treatment plant operating. We don't want to spend huge money on the treatment plant. We want to be able to have those lines available for any type of breakdowns we have. Chemical feed pumps. We've had to work on one of our high lift pumps. We had 2 VFD replacements that we've gone through, so we just, again, it's a failing plant. We just need to have the money available to do any type of emergency situations that may occur.
Okay. What are the filters? The filter, 558003, that's the, it's just this filter PLNT.
Filter plant.
Yeah, that's the basic supplies for filtration. The cost of all of our routine lab tests that we have to do, that's all paid through the filtration plant expenses. Everything has doubled and tripled as far as all of our reagents that we have to use, any other supplies that we may need for the plant itself.
Okay, so those are supplies and the cost has just gone way up?
Correct.
All right. Page 15. There's a $200,000, there's a 300% increase in water meters.
Yes, so what we did, this is for, we tried a revolving fund last year to try and get the commercial users to replace the commercial water meters. There's some out there that are 25 and 30 years old that need replacement. We did not get that many to be involved in that, so I spoke with the mayor, and we're going to take over the commercial meters, and we are going to make sure that they're changed out, and we're going to take them over for the future and make sure, because that, with the meters, we have to make sure that we're getting the revenue that we should be getting.
Okay, so that, you're going to take over the commercial meters, and this is going to cover the cost of what you apply to the commercial properties?
Correct. And that's going to be moving forward, so that'll be a yearly line.
How much do you think that will increase your water rates, or rather the revenue that comes from that?
I'm sorry?
You're replacing the meters because you think that there's a shortfall in your revenue because people aren't paying properly?
So as a meter gets older, you think of it as, same as your car, it's a mechanical device. So as your car gets older, it registers less gas mileage. The same goes with a water meter. So, every 15 years or so for a water meter is its useful life.
I understand that. How much do you think that the revenues will increase when you apply all of these brand-new meters to all the properties?
It depends on how much that a meter is. If it's 1% or 2%, it's unknown.
So you know that it's enough to merit $200,000 to replace the meters, but you're not sure how much it really is?
Well, through the chair, it's not only just the cost savings, because like you said, as the meters get older, it tends to not function as well. So you do lose some money from that. But also, it's the system, the commercial pumps are not connected with our new system. So we have a new a new system that tracks all of. Basically, we can go out and read all of the locations remotely and get the data remotely, and then having this ability to put everything new in gives us the connectivity. So the biggest glitches within that, right now a lot of our, used to be we had to go to each building way back when and plug it in and get the data, and then we got to the point when we could read it outside of the building or nearby, and now we actually get it town-wide. So the data comes in on a regular basis, we can check it on a regular basis. Well, a lot of these old systems don't have that ability.
Okay.
So that's another benefit to us, to have that data readily available on a regular basis.
So they'll be more accurate, and you will save on labor hours, sending people out to check meters. Okay.
Yes.
And then the last one I have is on page 16, where we have 521001 and 521011, purchase, serve, and power something. And it's just 117.6% up and 25% up respectively. And I was wondering if you could explain what those are and what's driving the increase.
Yes, those have to do with Rishardi Reservoir. We're in the process now of replacing one of the pumps. There's a lot more work that has to be done up there to maintain that station and to get it functioning properly.
There's work that has to be done to maintain the Rishardi
Yes.
Reservoir Station?
Yes.
Is it through the chair? Yes. It's a remote location, so there's a lot of issues with trying to maintain it, making sure everything's functioning properly. And you know, we have cameras and we have all kinds of stuff, and we do have failures with electrical services sometimes. And you know, sometimes kids get to things too, or people get to things and smash things if they're in the middle of the woods. But we do have cameras up and to monitor it and try to make sure that it's protected. But you know, things can happen, and we just want to have funds available to mitigate any concerns. So.
Okay, I understand. Those are my questions. Thank you so much. You waited a really long time through a lot of conversation, and it's worthy. The only person here who's waited even longer than you is the stormwater people. So my apologies to them, but thank you for your time and patience. And I'm so tired that, no.
Thank you, Counselor. Appreciate
I'm sure you
that.
are too.
Counselor Maglio.
Thank you. So we did a deep dive one time in the mayor's office recently all about the pumping and the water, and I learned a lot that day. And so I'm not going to really ask many questions. One question came up during Councilor Flaherty's. When you say that you're taking over the commercial water users, who are you taking that over from? What does that mean?
So right now, the commercial owners are responsible for the purchase, maintenance, everything of their meters. We're going to take all that over.
So who are they purchasing it from?
They're purchasing them on their own. We give them, we say, you know, you have to buy the meter from Thai Sales. It's a Neptune meter. That's what we use. So this is what you have to do, and they go out and purchase them. But like I said, it's just easier for us to do it since now we have the manpower to actually do that and, you know, and go out and do it, so.
Okay, makes perfect sense. And also, Councilor Flaherty, your comments about what happens when you have a robust budget, I absolutely agree. It's nice, you get to plan, you get to do preventive, you get to have strategies, and you're not always in a reactive mode. So, fantastic. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Counselor. Madam President, any questions?
I'm all set. Thank you.
Very good. All of my questions have been answered. They have previously been asked. So, good job. We're all set, I think, with water and sewer. Appreciate your time. All right. And next up is our stormwater maintenance division, our stormwater division. And good evening.
Good evening. Thank you, Mr. Chair. I do wish to point out the opportunity that Wait is not my middle name, it is my last name.
Very good. Thank you for that levity. We needed it. All right. Okay. So would you like any, to make any kind of a comment or when you open up?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you to the members of the committee. I know we've been here a while, so keep in mind the hour. Just a quick overview of our budget this year. We have had a significant rate increase That was part of the original stormwater budget as it was voted in 2018. This was our last increase related to that vote. So you'll see significant increases in some budget lines because we have more money than we had. And a lot of people ask me what their stormwater utility pays for. So very briefly, it pays for essentially 6 big programs. Number 1 is public outreach. Number 2 is public participation, things like Adopt a Drain and programs like that. Third is illicit discharge detection and elimination, something we're really ramping up this year and going into the next 5 years. 4 is stormwater management during construction, so construction site inspection, making sure private construction sites are preventing pollution in every way that they can. Post-construction stormwater management, which is related to that in the sense that after construction, we also want to make sure developers are controlling the runoff that that development creates. And 6, which is municipal good housekeeping, things like sweeping our streets, cleaning our catch basins, and making sure that we're doing as much as we can to keep our stormwater as clean as it can be.
That was excellent. Thank you. All right. Any questions from Councilor Flaherty?
I think that most of my questions have to do either with what you just explained, which I did not understand when I first was reviewing this, or with just the stormwater. It's not a very old fund. But for the, but I will ask, on page 1, you have a consultant fee that has increased 700%. What does the consultant do?
Sure. So we're aiming to use those funds this year and over this past last year we have as well to further along some engineering designs of stormwater retrofit projects that we'd like to do. So proactive projects. We'd like to get those a little bit more shovel ready, and that's what we're hoping for with this particular, we're going from 5,000 to 40,000. It's a big increase. We're trying to get a couple of projects all the way to shovel ready.
Well, that is planning.
Yes.
And that's how we make things successful. That's all my questions. You are awesome, and I believe in you.
Thank you. Councilor Maglio.
Thank you. I would agree that the work you do is really important and really effective, and I appreciate it. And we've had a few talks before, and I know that you're a grant seeker and a grant writer, and you love to think about projects to do, and that benefits all of us. Thank you.
Thank you.
No questions.
Great. Thank you very much. Madam President, any questions?
I am all set, and thank you so much.
Good to go. Terrific. Just a couple of very quick questions. I'm sure you've got the answer ready. On page 4 of the stormwater equipment maintenance, there is an M/V rep, $10,000 projected over last year's $3,000. What is that? Motor vehicle related?
That is motor vehicle repair.
Got it.
And we've split some, we've been able to find other places to find where we can spend on motor vehicle repair, but our catch basin trucks, as you're all aware, are quite old, and they have to go to an outside vendor for repair. They're very specific. They have a lot of hydraulic components and mechanical components that we cannot repair through the excellent facilities program.
Okay, so these are above and beyond. I was going to ask that question. If your team also was included in the consolidated maintenance line items that we saw earlier in the DPW.
Through the chair.
Yeah.
So in a utility, they're separate
So
because,
they will, okay.
because they act on their own. So
That's right. So
Yeah.
you cannot commingle. That's right. Thank you for that correction. Thank you. All right. That is all that I had for you. And other than, I'll echo my fellow councilors. Great job. I think the stormwater has always been near and dear to my heart since its inception. I was right there when it started, and I'm really glad to see the stewardship and the innovation and just the impact to our community can't be overstated. So thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. All right, you are done for the evening. That was quick. Sorry for the delay and the wait.
Nice that your team all waited together.
Yeah.
That's really nice.
Supporting each other, that's great. Okay, so as I said, the only items we were not able to get to this evening were the DPW school-related items from a custodial, maintenance, and utility perspective. We are going to schedule that for the 17th of May. That is the evening that we have the education. The schools will be here, and we'll be reviewing that. Yes?
Just a question on revolving funds, Mr. Chairman?
Yes, we're going to do that.
Okay.
We're going to do that,
Thank you.
absolutely. That's on our table, so. All right, I just wanted to take care of the budget review process itself, so the first motion. All right, so, first up is, do we have,
Good job.
is there a motion to table order 23025 to May 15th, 2023?
Motion to table orders 23025 to May 15th, 2023.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, thank you very much. Okay, 23026, Mayor, FY 2024 budget, excuse me, stand corrected, that is not the item I want to talk about tonight. From item 23027, what we have here is a motion for continuation of revolving funds, and we are going to, so I'd like a motion to open up, take off the table, motion 23027.
Motion to take off the table order 23027.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, thank you very much. So, are there any comments concerning recycling materials, household hazardous waste, revolving funds this evening? From anybody in the committee?
No.
Nope.
No questions, Madam President? Good to go, thank you. All right, so that being said, I do not have any questions either, so we will, at this point, we are going to have to table two motions. First up, let's take care of the one we're currently on. Is there a motion to table order 023027 until, what is the next evening we want to do that?
May 16th.
To May 16th.
Motion to table order 23027 to the Ways and Means meeting on May 16th, 2023.
Second. It says the 15th. Right.
Okay, yeah, okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Very good. Do we have a motion to table order 23025?
We already did that one.
I'm sorry. We already did that one. So, we do not have, we have tabled everything at this point? Excellent.
Motion to adjourn.
Okay. And do we have a second on that? All in favor?
Aye.
All right, I want to thank BCAM this evening, Bill Needham and Jerry Comack. Thank you, gentlemen, for bearing with us. Have a good evening, everybody.
Thank you,
What's left of
everybody.
it.